This is an emergency broadcast. The unpleasant noise you are about to hear coming from your radio is not a mistake. Please do not turn off your radio, but turn up the volume on your receiver as high as it can go, so that you can make the sound we broadcast as loud as possible.
Godzilla says that I should learn to fight my own battles. No.
Godzilla-Thon gang.
All of you, join me in escape. Look, it's a flying saucer.
Never mind the part about space creatures trying to take over the world. I'd say that giant octopus is our monster.
See you later.
Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome to the second episode of Attack of the 70-Foot Podcast. God damn it, I almost forgot the name of my own podcast. I am the dyspeptic Calvin McCarthy, and here with me again, we have the silent assassin, Chris Jaywardena. Did I say your last name correctly?
No, that's okay.
No, I always get it wrong. I think for the longest time I said Jaywardena. I can never get it right. And I just made up.
Yeah,
I just made up
silent
silent assassin.
Yeah.
I hope you like that nickname. I just threw it in because I gave myself dyspeptic.
I mean, if you've seen enough of my movies, you know that's pretty fitting.
Well, and you're like kind of a quiet guy sometimes. I don't think I've ever heard. I don't think I've ever seen you raise your voice or get angry before. So
you haven't seen me. You haven't seen me on set long enough.
I think you got mad when you hit your camera once, but it's not like you yelled or anything like that. I've seen everyone.
Yeah. I did raise my voice at that. Yeah. Oh God. Well, it was that. Yeah, that was at Steven's old apartment. It was so cramped in there.
Yeah. Yep. I remember that. And we got a new guest, Quinn Allen. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, well, thank you. And it's Calvin and Chris. Am I saying that right, Chris?
Yes.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Say his last name.
Oh gosh, please don't embarrass me like that.
You gotta try.
Jawa something or other. I can't even see it from here. Hold on. It's so long. It is dotted on the Skype call. Let me see here. I'm almost got it. Jaywardena. Nope. Jaywardena.
That's what I used to say.
Yeah, I got nothing.
It's pretty close. Yeah, the Sinhalese names are pretty phonetic.
Okay, let's hear it.
It's Jaywardena.
Jaywardena. Of course.
God damn it. I thought I was going to get it this time.
Cool. All right. So 2 minutes and we're already derailed. Let's keep going. So, but Quinn, can you at least tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, yeah, sure. My name is Quinn Allen. I am also known as the nerdcore hip-hop artist Kid Apocalypse, and huge kaiju fan. Been watching Godzilla movies ever since I was a wee one, and 35 years later, it hasn't stopped me.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Actually, before we get on to news, that's a pretty interesting topic. You can see how unprepared I am here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, how did you guys get into Godzilla films? Out of curiosity, like, do you remember seeing your first Godzilla film?
I do. Yeah. I remember both my first Godzilla film and the first time I believe that I actually saw Godzilla ever, which was my father had one of those old books about movie monsters. I may have mentioned this on the last podcast actually, but it was this green book. Frankenstein was on the cover, and you actually can see someone on the train in Hausu when they're going to the house, actually reading it on the train. It's a copy of that book. Yeah. And in that book, there was this one image of Godzilla with the train in his mouth. And the thing is, I loved trains as a kid, and just this weird kind of combination of dinosaurs and trains and monster stuff, because that became sort of the gateway drug for me, I think, to movies and cinema. And then my first one I think was my mom rented for me Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I was about 5. It was a really crappy VHS tape. I mean, I remember that it was one of those, like, they probably did the dupe, recorded onto video, with a video camera filming a screen in probably like the early 80s, because the transfer was just absolute garbage. But yeah, that was the beginning.
That's
I'm
awesome.
I'm trying to think if I can remember. I don't think I could actually remember the first Godzilla movie I watched. I've been watching them since I was a little kid. All I do remember is that there was one network where I grew up. I want to say it was around Christmas or New Year's, would show a 24-hour Godzilla movie marathon. And it was one of the few nights of the year as a child I was allowed to stay up as late as I wanted. So it became this sort of special tradition in my household that when it was that night and there was going to be all the Godzilla movies, I could attempt to stay up as late as I wanted to watch all the movies. That's my earliest memories of watching Godzilla films.
Yeah, I can remember Sci-Fi Channel doing something like that. I think there were a few channels. TNT used to do a Godzilla-Thon as well, as a part of their Joe Bob Briggs Monster Vision thing, but I think it was pre Joe Bob Briggs. I wonder if that's what you're talking about, because I remember that as well. Yeah. God, I remember seeing. I still remember the first time ever seeing a Godzilla film. Waking up really early on a Saturday, and it was on the Sci-Fi Channel, and for whatever reason they were playing. They played 3 in a row, and they were kind of the ones that you typically saw a lot on cable television. It was Destroy All Monsters, Godzilla vs. Gigan, and Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. And, I mean, by that point, I was already a really, really, big dinosaur fan. My dad worked at OMSI for a little while when I was a kid. That's so cool. I was already really heavy into dinosaurs and dinosaur films and Jurassic Park. I was probably 4 years old, 4 or 5. I was really young. And I just have vague memories of watching that. And then shortly after that, my grandma is full Japanese, and she was like ecstatic anytime any of her grandkids who are only a fourth Japanese got into something that was Japanese. And I had relatives from Japan, and they would like send me Japanese bootleg tapes off of Japanese television with like commercials, and I couldn't understand them, but I was just a complete junkie. And yeah, I mean, that's just never gone away. Those films are just so goddamn like ingrained into who I am at this point.
Has that ever led to you? Have you learned more Japanese since then as being a child to kind of be able to understand that better, or was that just kind of it's almost part of the magic is being able to like know this is part of like your heritage, but not like necessarily having that kind of conscious understanding of it? Yeah,
I never really caught on. I mean, I would pick up stuff here and there, but that was more from my Obachan, and my dad can sort of speak Japanese, and I would say that my sister's better than I'm not a very good student when it comes to sitting down, especially with the language. I tend to tune out, but I mean, I can, say, oh, my name is Calvin. I can order food. I can say, just like little phrases here and there. I can say my grandma is Japanese in Japanese and stuff like that. But yeah, I can ask people how they're doing and that kind of stuff. I can
Calvin, on a related note, I still work for OMSI, so I may or may not be your dad. Is the end of that story.
Dad?
It's my God, so it's a beautiful reunion here.
What do you do at OMSI?
Over a love of Godzilla. I was actually working at the robot exhibit that was there not too long ago, and I've stayed on as an on-call educator.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. My dad really wants to go back and work there. When I was, I guess about 6, he went to Nike and worked for Nike as a graphic designer for 20 years and hated it.
That's probably a smarter move financially.
It was a super smart move at the time, but now that we're all grown, he really wants to go back. I guess he even went in there and told, I don't know, one of the hiring managers or something that he would be back no matter what.
Well, there you go. That's awesome.
Yeah. So some Godzilla news. There's not a ton out there, but the main reason why I really wanted to do this, I I'd been thinking of what the hell our next topic was going to be for the second episode of this, and I was really kind of wondering, oh man, that might be a one-off. We might not ever get back to it. But thankfully, the beautiful Hollywood Theater in Portland, Oregon, is doing a Godzilla-Thon at the end of this month, and it made me realize how big the Godzilla community here is, and just I don't know, it just kind of got me in the mood. I've been rewatching a lot of Godzilla films and really wanted to talk about it. So I just thought that I would shout out the Hollywood Theater, and you guys are all going to that, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yep, yeah. Definitely. I got to get that poster, man. I've got to get my hands on it.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. Yeah. Literally when the announcement for the Godzilla-Thon stuff went out to the Hollywood member, email, I was hanging out with my friend Phil, who's also a kaiju nut and sadly won't be able to make it to the screening because he's working. But yeah, we're sitting on the couch playing a video game, and I check my email on my phone. I'm like, hang on a second, I'll be right back. And I run to my computer and just bought spent like $60 getting all the tickets for everything.
Yeah, are you going? That was going to be my next question. Are you going to? I guess all 6 films?
4 films. Yeah, I'm going to all 4.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's only 4.
They're
yeah, because I'm only
two of
going
them
to 2.
twice.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. That was a lot of scratch. So I picked the 2 that I wanted to go to the most. So I'm gonna go to Destroy All Monsters on Friday, and then Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla on Saturday.
Nice. I hope the Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla print is a little better than the last one I saw there, because it was red in places.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the cool thing about the Hollywood Theater, if we can at least use this as a quick jumping off point, because I have two stories about the Hollywood Theater regarding their history with Godzilla, which is pretty cool. Is some folks I think kind of newer to Portland and to the scene here of all these revival theaters like the Hollywood and the Cinema 21 and Clinton Street, etc. They may not realize that actually in 2004 for the 50th anniversary of Godzilla, there was actually like a big Godzilla film festival, and I actually have a poster of that on my wall because I went to it, and they played a bunch of actual 35mm prints of some of these films. They even played some of the 90s ones. They played so I got to see Destroy All Monsters there, and under that, and this was 2004, so this was almost this will be 15 years I think this October. But what's also been kind of cool is over the years, and it just makes a lot of sense that they're one of the places for obviously this is definitely for the Criterion release
Right.
In regards to it makes a lot of sense because as well over time Dan Halstead, who curates the Grindhouse Film Festival and the Kung Fu Theater and some of the other showings at the Hollywood, has occasionally snuck in Godzilla films as secret showings. One particular story, which was an absolute blast, was that I cannot remember what year this is. I would have to go research this, but they did a secret movie marathon at the Hollywood Theater, and it was on New Year's Day. And this was more pleasant times. This was I want to say 2012 or 2013 or something. Things were pretty chill. The world was in a better place, and what was great is, we had no idea they were going to play 3 movies. We had no idea what they were going to be. And start of the day, it's a full house, and they say, okay, and our first movie is going to be Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. And basically for the next 2 hours, you got to see this entire packed theater of 20 and 30 somethings devolve into being 8-year-olds on a Saturday morning. When it gets to Anger is showing up, and when Anger is basically gets his jaw dislocated,
right?
They were screaming their heads off the entire time, and they were shouting and cheering. It was pretty nuts. It was great. And so, it's been something that whenever they've played a Godzilla film, they played Destroy All Monsters at another secret showing, I think a few Novembers ago. And yeah, it's something that always gets a great response out of the crowd. And so for anyone out there that's in the Portland area or in the Pacific Northwest and is thinking of going to this, the experience with the audience is great. They always do a lot of great, there's an amazing atmosphere, and the screen's huge. The screen's huge, and the seats are comfy, and the sound system's fantastic. I even saw the new Godzilla King of the Monsters there, and it sounded way better than it did on the multiplexes. And so, yeah, it's
beer and pizza.
I was under the impression that all of these showings were 35 millimeter prints. Is that not true? I know some of them at least are.
I believe all 4 of these are going to be 35.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So, big reason to
Which is
go. Some of those prints are hard to get a hold of. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, and some of them look better than others, but I mean that's part of the experience. I saw Fulci's Gates of Hell. I guess it was about like 4 months ago, and that was a really beat up print of the film. But I don't know, there was something about it that was still really charming. But yeah, real quick, speaking of the New Year's Day secret marathons, I had finally gotten the opportunity to go to one, probably 2 or 3 years ago. And I actually was, and I love the Hollywood. I love going to these, but I was kind of let down by the lineup. There were no horror films. It was Shogun Assassin, which was a great way to start it off. But then there was like White Lightning with Burt Reynolds.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, Shogun Assassin, White Lightning, and I can't remember what the third was. That was there.
Yeah, the Hong Kong one, right? The spy from, and I don't know. I was a little let down. I was expecting grindhouse films.
Well, those are grindhouse films. I mean, White Lightning it's Bo Hopkins is in that fucking movie.
I meant like cannibal grindhouse films.
Yeah, okay. You wanted some Italian.
Pieces, right.
Yeah, you wanted the print of Pieces they get is a blast to watch.
Oh, I bet.
Oh yeah, that's how I first saw it. I first saw Pieces at the Hollywood. It was amazing.
Yeah, I've seen Mothra at the Hollywood, and I've seen the original Gojira, but I haven't seen any of their Godzilla films, any of like their prints on the big screen. So I'm really excited to see them.
Yeah, if the Destroy All Monsters, from what I remember, was beat up, but the sound was really good. And for the most part, the color fidelity I remember being very good. So I don't know if they're getting something fresh for this, or if it's going to be actual vintage print for that one. Because that was the thing, was the print in 2004 that was here for that festival, that looked pretty freshly struck. That had like very little wear and tear on that from 15 years ago. So I have no idea where some of these sources are going to be from. I'm just, as I think I've mentioned to you, Calvin, privately, I'm just waiting to see when Dan's going to finally play King Kong Escapes, because he's been playing that player. He's been playing that trailer for like 7 years.
Forever, and it'll play again. You know it's going to play again.
Oh yeah,
every Godzilla film. Because I've seen it at least 5 times now. And I don't know if he has. I mean, does he have a print of the film? Is he just sitting on it, waiting to play it, or?
I'm wondering if it's it's one of those holy grails. But my understanding with prints is that there's some films that, like, you can get it on DVD or Blu-ray, no problem. But like to get an actual film print, especially for collectors, is like that's the holy grail type stuff.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. I can't remember. There was one I remember hearing about it. I know, like, back in the day, like Tarantino would talk about how, like, there was one of the Man from U.N.C.L.E. movies, where they would take a couple of the episodes of the show and they would like put it into a film. It's like insanely hard to get, and like it took them like years and years of like going through Europe to finally track one down.
Well, when I saw Cannibal Holocaust there, I swear I remember him saying that it was like the only uncut 35 mil print that existed.
I wouldn't be surprised. I remember seeing the first time they played Cannibal Holocaust, I was there for that. And it was, one thing is that was my first time seeing the movie, period. And feeling that trapped was a little claustrophobic. But
oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it was one of those, you're never ready for Cannibal Holocaust. You think you are, but you're not.
Not on the big screen with an audience.
Oh, Jesus.
People's reactions were great.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I remember something like that. If it is the only one that's in circulation, I mean, God, the condition was great.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it was.
Yeah, but like, but I'll be curious to see like Megalon, because I know the main version I've seen of Godzilla vs. Megalon's been the MST3K version, which again is one of those crappier VHS prints, and so I'd be curious to see how that looks with nice restored colors. And Godzilla vs. Gigan, again, I mean, because I guess that's the one benefit of 3 of the 4 films being the Fukuda. So the Fukuda's later stuff is that or Fukuda is the palettes are going to be really bright and crisp, and if the prints are in good condition, it's going to be a explosion of color across the screen.
Yeah, I'm really bummed I'm going to miss that one.
That's the only one I'm going to.
Gigan or Megalon?
Megalon. Yeah.
Megalon.
Yep.
Megalon will be fun.
Yeah, it should be. It's a great film.
So yeah, moving on a little bit here. Obviously, that's a good segue into the new Criterion release of the Showa era Godzilla films.
Mm-hmm.
Has anyone pre-ordered that? I haven't had the money to pre-order it, but
Nor I. What's it? The pre-order's 180. Is that right?
It's
Yeah,
180 off
yeah.
the. Yeah, it's the cheapest I found it is at actually have it up right now, so I'm literally looking at it. Is diabolicdvd.com has it for 150, and with a flat rate of shipping, it is 158. So that's the cheapest I've seen it. So
Wow.
yeah,
A lot of rumors, a lot of hearsay about this. A lot of back and forth as far as which prints are, which ones are they using, which transfers are they using from what, and also I'm hearing some back talk about that one's not going to include the original Japanese audio, or this one's going to be dubbed.
Really?
So. Yeah, I've heard a couple things. So
I wonder how much. I was just going to say, I wonder how much of that has to do with the Criterion channel, because they have a bunch of transfers that are going to probably be on this release there, and there are some that are the dub only. They don't have the alternate. But that being said, they're different from when they were on Filmstruck's Criterion channel, where they had the original Japanese or the English audio in some cases. So yeah, hearsay would be my judgment call on that one.
Also makes me wonder which versions of the English dub they're going to use as well. I mean, one that's we'll probably get into this a little bit later. But the original AIP dub for Destroy All Monsters and the original AIP dub for Godzilla vs. Smog Monster hold a really special place in my heart. And I think it was in the late 90s or into the 2000s when like TriStar they were re-releasing a lot of those, or maybe it was for the 50th anniversary. Maybe it was 2004. They ended up redubbing both of those films, and I really dislike the newer dubs. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see what Criterion does with that, and I'm also not nuts about the cover art that they've done, the new newly commissioned artwork. Yeah, but I'm just that way. I do that with everything. I don't like
it's bold. It's quite bold and different, but I don't know that I mind it. But as far as the dubs and having that nostalgia for a certain one, I can totally relate to that. I feel the same way about some of the Miyazaki films from Studio Ghibli, like the Fox Family, Totoro. I would still take that dub any day over the Disney one, where they got high profile actors to do all the Disney releases.
Yeah, I agreed. Yeah, there's definitely there's a charm, and it's a memory, and it's part of the history of it too, because this was it's not like, oh, this was just that small little release. It's like, no, like literally hundreds of thousands of people saw these particular old versions with those dubs. So I mean, it's part of the history now. Right,
and the nostalgia factor is really big for me with the Godzilla films, especially the older Godzilla films, because these are ones that my dad would drive me around to, like the old One Day Video. I mean, this was kind of like the last dying gasp of the mom and pop video rental store, and we would just dig through their sci-fi section and get all the really crappy, like you were saying, Chris, kind of the really grungy transfers and taking them home and watching them. So I don't know, it conjures up a lot of feels for me, so messing with the English dubbing, or I don't know, there are certain Godzilla films that I prefer the English dub, just because I grew up with that version of the film. So I'd hate to see that tampered with for such a big release of the film. You can I don't know if you guys have the Destroy All Monsters DVD or Blu-ray from Tokyo Shock, but they have both versions of the English dub and the original Japanese version and an audio commentary. So they were really doing it right. I was kind of hoping that Criterion was going to do that. I hadn't heard some of the backlash against these releases, so I'll have to read a little bit more into that.
Yeah, we'll see we'll see where it goes. It's main thing is that it's my understanding especially with releasing this type of older content when the rights are a nightmare, and that some of the quality standards can be super difficult, because they may have the they may have the audio track, but it's like, well, we're gonna have to rip it off of a VHS tape,
right?
And the quality is gonna be so poor, we can't master this to the quality that our customers want. So that's the interesting trade-off that they have to sometimes make. So, and as far as I can tell, at least, because I'm looking at the site right now and I'm checking every single one of these little things, and as far as I can tell, the features list is currently very incomplete, as in they haven't actually.
That's what I remember too.
Right. Yeah. So I'm wondering, because I mean, like some of these, they're not even listing if they have the trailers or not. And I know that they have a ton of these trailers around because we see them out of the discs, and we've seen high def restorations of some of them. So I mean, this will be very interesting to see how it develops, and how much more they're able to lock in. Because my understanding is, like, depending on when they have to like start printing the discs, they may be still finishing the mastering process up until like maybe like middle of September or something like that.
Wow. Have they made mention if they will include the Japanese version of Godzilla vs. King Kong?
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, too.
That is, they say both the Japanese version and the U.S. release cut. Oh, wait, no. There were rousing hits cementing Godzilla's status as a serious no-threat star. They do not mention. They reference them in the blurb, which is promising. So
okay. All right. Well, here's hoping. Because I don't think I've ever actually even seen the true Japanese one, to be honest.
Me neither.
Yep, I have not. I have not either. Yep.
Does Movie Madness have a bootleg version of King Kong vs. Godzilla? Yeah, I've never actually thought to check. But
I've gotten a link sent to me from another kaiju fan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I never actually bothered to explore it that route. I just feel like I'm kind of a purist in some ways. Like, I just want to see it on an actual screen in a quality print.
Right, not huddled over a laptop.
Exactly.
But that's what HDMI plugs are for.
Yeah. But if the quality of the stream or whatever isn't great, then
that's true. That's true.
Right.
Yeah, we've all become snobs. I mean, come on, like we would spend hours downloading movie trailers, 20 years ago.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I remember, the days of cam rips, and like being ubiquitous, and it's like today, it's like, ugh, like how it's completely unnecessary too. I mean, the stuff comes out on disc like within. I mean, good lord. I mean, Godzilla King of the Monsters is hitting Blu-ray in like another week and a half from today.
Right.
I think.
Yep. I remember, it's just funny you bringing up bootlegs and stuff, and I grew up in San Diego. I grew up going to the San Diego Comic-Con, which was actually a really great place for a long time to get bootleg stuff.
I'm sure.
It was, you'd have the whole booth dedicated to just totally not legit bootlegs. But I remember there was a fan film made a number of years ago, a Batman fan film, a short film called, I think it was Batman Dead End, I want to say it was called.
Yeah.
And it was Batman fighting Predator and Alien and the Joker, and it was fantastic, and it was amazing. And we kept going around to the bootleg places looking for a copy of it, thinking, oh, for sure one of these bootleg places will have it. And we actually were able to track it down, and I thought this was one of the most clever ways to bootleg something I'd ever heard of. It was a digital DVD magazine, like a monster movie effects and makeup magazine that was done instead of printed, but on a DVD, and you would get you'd get a subscription to it, and then you'd load the DVD and choose the features. And they buried it as an Easter egg on that DVD. And kudos to the guy for being honest with us. It's not like we could have verified it at the time when he's still like, yeah, sure, buy this magazine. I swear it's an Easter egg on here. But,
right.
But it really was. And it was, I thought that was a very clever way to get, because they had, the people that made it were not going to mess with Warner Brothers and, the rights and all that. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
That's a great story.
That's a good marketing campaign, really.
Mm-hmm.
Good grassroots way to get your movie out there. Yeah, speaking of weird bootleg films, have you guys seen Godzilla versus the Wolfman?
I've seen photos, and I think
just photos and clips.
Yeah, just a little clip. Yeah.
It was on YouTube very briefly before being taken down. That's an interesting.
As far as I understand it, whatever exists is a fan-made cut, if I remember correctly. It was some fan that recovered the footage and was piecing it together as best as they could. That's what I had last heard about that project. I think they might have had a Kickstarter or something at one point, but Toho's pretty quick. Toho's pretty quick to shut that down.
Yeah, I mean, anyone with a YouTube channel that's tried to review Godzilla films will tell you Toho, they sniff that stuff out quick and they shut it down.
Yep.
So speaking of that, so Calvin, have you put up your review for the Mothra Blu-ray yet?
I did, yeah, I did. Yeah, that was another thing I really wanted to just touch on really lightly. Mill Creek, of all companies, released a Steelbook Special Edition Blu-ray, first time ever on Blu-ray, version of Mothra, which looks great. Like I said, I saw it at the Hollywood Theater not that long ago. This was another one that for the longest times, the only version I had ever seen was a Japanese VHS that was sent to me via cousins in Japan. And that's one that I've really grown to appreciate more and more as time goes on. I really like the sort of anti-capitalism messages and sort of American, anti-Russian. I mean, geez, the enemy country in that is called Rolisica. I don't know. It was a bit over my head as a kid. And it's one that every time I watch it, I like it a little bit more and more. But Mill Creek did a really good job, and I really think that they need to continue that trend. I think they have the rights to 2 other Toho films, The H-Man and Battle in Outer Space, which have both not had a Blu-ray release. And I really think they should jump on that and do another Steelbook. Quinn, I know that Chris is, but Quinn, you're a media collector as well, correct?
Yeah, to some degree.
Yeah. So I mean, it's definitely worth a pickup. It's really pretty looking. So, that stuff always gets me going.
That's the 64 Mothra you're talking about?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or 61, excuse me.
Yeah, it's 61.
I was 61. Yeah, I was like, wait.
Yeah, 64 is Godzilla versus Mothra. Mothra
Right.
versus Godzilla. Yeah.
Right.
That reminds me of something, but I think I'm gonna have to wait on that. It's one of the Easter egg thing, or one of the little nods I found in Doherty's Godzilla King of the Monsters. But we'll get to that, I think, at a later time.
Okay. Yeah.
I hope. Yeah, it's just yeah. Anyway, but with Mothra and regarding the Mill Creek release, though, you said you were very happy with this release, though. That it felt like it was pretty good, because the photos I've seen from it seem a little like the print's a little dark, the transfer's a little dark. Is that the case, or did you find Calvin that it's pretty up to snuff?
No, I thought it looked great. Granted, I just kind of watched through it once, but I thought it looked just fine. But I thought their original DVD release of it, they did a 3-pack, all 3 of the Toho films that they own, and I was surprised with that release as well, with how good it looked. No, it didn't look dark to me. I mean, now that you say that, I'm sure I'll probably notice it. I was really excited for this release for Mill Creek, really, because they're sort of an underdog. You know, they're not really a sought-after company. No one goes, oh, the new Mill Creek release is coming out, you know. And they really could work their way up. I really think that if they continue this trend, they might be able to do that. So I don't know. Maybe I had blinders on while I was watching it, just being a little too giddy about it.
I wasn't meaning to be disparaging against the release. It's just that I was looking at some of the stills, and it just seemed as if the contrast landed where things were a little on the dark side, and the highlights felt a little clipped. But which with some film stocks and some transfers, I do notice that just kind of happens. There needs to be a little massaging, and that can sometimes be the interesting trade-off, is that you make it more faithful to the print, which means you're also not doing a lot of like restoration work. So you're making sure that the scratches are cleaned up, the grain's a little, is either, if not augmented, I guess what would be the word, the grain's not too intense, and the dirt.
Right.
But then the process, and the colors are clear, but in the process, your actual brightness values need maybe a little bit of, your midtones become a little overly dominant, or your shadows become overly dominant. But yeah, that was just all. That was all I was asking about.
Yeah, I didn't really notice that with Mothra. I will say their other big Blu-ray release about a year ago was Night of the Living Dead. They rushed to release that on Blu-ray before Criterion released it, so they could say, for the first time on Blu-ray, Night of the Living Dead. And that version is really shitty. I mean, I picked it up, obviously, and thought, man, I would rather watch one of the DVD versions that I have, like the Dimension DVD restoration, over this one. So, I mean, they're not necessarily known for doing the best work with restoration, but I really didn't notice anything with Mothra. So I don't know. I guess I'll have to go back and look because they're not exactly Mr. Quality Control when it comes to that kind of stuff. So.
Right.
Chris, I'm so glad there are people out there like you that can put those thoughts into
They
words
can ruin it.
just about the transferring. And I'm serious because like I used to be, especially when Blu-ray first hit the scene, I was like super hyped on it. I was all about like, yes, we're going to get these like newer, greater. I understand the disc size is bigger so you can actually fit more definition in there. And okay, great, awesome. And then I remember getting the new Star Wars or the original Star Wars trilogy on Blu-ray and just being like, this is doo-doo. Like not really having the vocabulary to describe why it was doo-doo, but like I was just like, this is just not what I wanted. Like I'd almost rather watch VHSs of it.
Right.
Yeah, I've read many reviews of Blu-rays over the years and DVDs
Sounds
and
like
Blu-rays, and so it's I mean, blue-ray.com is definitely one of my. I mean, I'm looking at it right now for the Mothra review and checking out their stills. Yeah.
Yeah. Did they? I actually haven't looked at. I haven't looked at anyone else's review for it. I'm sure there are probably a lot out there that are talking a lot of shit on it. Like I said, I got it. I was immediately excited. I messaged you guys and I watched it, and then I did a video, and I didn't even look to see what everyone else said.
Other people's opinions don't matter.
Exactly. If you liked it, that's what matters, man.
Totally.
It's what matters to you.
Can I just say we kind of got into that subject again of like kind of like missing or lost sort of versions of films. And you guys had Zach Carter on recently, if I remember correctly, right?
Yes, sir.
A friend. Yes, and Zach, knows a lot more than I do about transferring things between media types. And actually, I had secured a while back a copy of what do they call it? Godzilla 1985? Is that what they call the American version of Godzilla 1984? Yeah, I've never seen that version of it because if I remember correctly, the last format it was put out on officially was VHS. And I no longer have a functioning VCR, and they stopped making those. So I've been petitioning Zach to actually take my tape and make a transfer for me. He has yet to complete that request.
I can do that for you.
Well, there you go, Zach. I no longer need you. Your services will not be rendered anymore.
Yeah,
Thank
man.
you. Clean out your desk.
I'll come bring you a copy. Fuck, I'll do it this weekend. I've got VHS to DVD transfer. I did that with all
beautiful.
I did that with all of my Godzilla VHS films because every now and then I'll want to watch Godzilla on VHS, but I want to watch the DVD so I don't ruin the VHS.
Ruin your VHS. It's a ticking time bomb with your VHS.
So if I want to watch a VHS, I watch it on DVD.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I actually really like the box art on that one too. I was pretty pleased with that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That the American poster for that was really good, which was on all the box art. Yeah.
And they got what's his name to come back, Burr, right?
Yep, Eamon Burr.
Eamon Burr, and he
Mason.
And he must have been pretty old at that point, right? Like.
Oh, I'm assuming so. Yeah.
Yeah, near death, I think.
I imagine so.
Let us
to the interwebs.
Yeah.
To the interwebs. He would have been. He was close to 80 years old. Sorry, 70 years old. He was in his late 60s.
All right,
but he ended up passing away in 93. So yeah, he passed away about 9 years later.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yep. But anyways, yeah, that's one of those ones that sort of slipped away from me. That and the Japanese Godzilla versus King Kong, which of course there was the old school rumors that they've changed the ending and Godzilla wins in the U.S. version. Obviously that's not true, but there is differences, just more so that the way they segue with those news segments and what have you.
Right. I used to have so many arguments with my older cousin, who was sort of like my brother. I mean, he lived with us for years and years and years. And just to get under my skin, I mean, he didn't even care. He would just say, no, King Kong won. He would try to ruin my day. There's no way. Yeah. Godzilla wins in that movie.
Yeah.
This is why I'm so glad I'm an only child. I had few friends and no cousins in the immediate vicinity.
Oh, man. We shared a room, and I swear to God, he would do that all the time. He knew it got under my skin.
Just not even related. He'd just walk up and be like, King Kong won. Like, like, no!
Yes. Cameron. He is Cameron Bryson is an evil person.
Oh, how dare you.
Anyway, so is there any other Godzilla news we have to cover? Because I'm still staring at the Mill Creek website, and I'm like getting lost in all the Grindhouse movies they've put out.
Oh, well, pick up the Hunter from the Future, Reb Brown.
Reb Brown.
Make sure you get that. But yeah, because I ordered that one a couple months back. That one looks really good. Nice. If you've ever seen that movie on VHS,
I have not. I am aware of it, but I have never seen the film.
Oh man! All right, get yourself a copy. That one looks good, and it's got a commentary with Reb Brown, and he's awesome. He's a really I'm lately I've been trying to work out a little bit. Just want to throw that out there. But I've been trying to.
I could tell from
Reb
your
Brown.
voice, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My big manly voice. No. Reb Brown had some pretty good workout advice in that actually. So. I'm just saying, he's a big, hulking, beautiful man, so why wouldn't you follow his routine? So no, that's it.
The P90 videos, you're watching Grindhouse films and just recreating the...
Just Reb Brown. My motivation is just a big this Reb Brown poster up on the wall.
And just
with my face.
Just staring him in the eye. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and at some point you're gonna get swole enough that you'll be worthy of you'll be worthy of David Ryder-esque names.
Right, blast hard cheese,
big blank chest,
big McLarge huge.
I'm not gonna lie. When the last time I watched the Rocky movies, I was like totally on the floor doing sit-ups, like, "Yep, this is gonna happen. This is gonna be the one." Like, no,
this is gonna be it, man.
Yeah. Didn't turn my life around. I'm not getting in the ring anytime soon.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's not really going very well for me either.
And it's one of these days, maybe that's the thing, is that's one of the things missing from these new Godzilla movies in America is, he's a little it's a husky guy. He's a husky-zilla, and it needs a training sequence for him to kind of work it off,
Totally.
Right, exactly. Yep. He's got to get his ass kicked and then go train somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is actually kind of how a lot of the Showa films would go. He would get his ass kicked, and then Godzilla would kind of go lick his wounds and come back bigger and badder, and possessing magnetic powers all of a sudden.
Oh, God, I love that bit. That is, oh, gosh. Cool.
All right, I guess, you had something there?
Oh, I couldn't remember. Is that's Godzilla vs. King Kong you're referencing?
No, that's Mechagodzilla.
Oh, Mechagodzilla, that's right. But doesn't King Kong get electric powers in Godzilla vs. King Kong?
Yeah, he does.
Okay, so just random assigned powers is where my brain was going.
Yeah. For no reason, right?
Yep.
King Kong just
spice things up a bit.
Yeah.
He didn't have atomic breath, so they had to kind of try to level the playing field.
And as I remember, his electric touch didn't really do too much.
No, probably tickled.
Yeah, it's like getting static basically. It's like you wear socks and you just rub them on the carpet for a little bit.
He just stuck a balloon to Godzilla's head. It was funny.
Right. It's really annoying. Yeah, man, that's all I got for news. So.
Yeah, I'm struggling to think. I mean, there's been a bunch of toy news with Godzilla stuff, but when is there not? They keep pumping that stuff out.
I know.
There was the one last piece of news that just came to mind that I would like to share in case you gents haven't heard is that so I follow Michael Dougherty on Twitter, and I mean, first of all, he's had a lot of awesome answers about the film. If you like the new movie, there's a lot of cool stuff that he confirms about backstory detail and talks about the process. But he did just share a ton of concept art from Godzilla King of the Monsters, and some of it's pretty impressive. It's and it's cool to see that they pretty much, it's, I guess the main thing I would say is it looks like the movie, but with less rain and brighter. So you can, you can see, because I know that was a lot of people's complaint about the battle sequences. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw some of those. They look good. I thought the monster designs looked pretty good. I don't know what it was about that movie that I wasn't hot on.
I would weigh in if I had seen it, but I still have not actually seen it.
I loved it.
I want to. I'm not against seeing it. I just haven't had the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I was. I'm a big stinker. I don't like new things. I don't like change. That's why my girlfriend and I have been together for 6 years and haven't gotten married. I don't like change. I like keeping things the way they are. I like my Godzilla to be non-CGI and Japanese.
It sounds like I'm hearing a Last Jedi hater over here. That's what I'm hearing right now.
Yeah, no comment. I just won't even open up.
No comment. That's a different podcast. We'll come back to that.
I just won't even open up that can of worms at all. Although I will say that Disney's Star Wars Land is pretty cool.
Oh, you went, did you?
Yeah, I did.
That's cool. My sister also was there. I did want to mention one other Godzilla-related thing, just because this is news to me, probably not the rest of the waking world, especially amongst kaiju fans. But I had been recently rewatching all of original Dragon Ball and was surprised how many Godzilla monsters, for some reason, made their way into that show. Like, clearly Baragon is in it at one point, and so is Godzilla himself. And it was just like, those worlds had never been connected for me previous to this rewatch of original Dragon Ball.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm looking this up now.
Yep, look it up.
Holy cow.
Yep.
He is first mentioned in the Dr. Slump series in the 4th chapter titled Dr. Monster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
They're in the animated cartoon. Like, there's a sequence where they fight a monster or something, and Baragon goes running away from a bush or something. But
Huh.
They are even as a verbal reference. They say later in the series when Porunga is summoned in West City, one of the police officers wonders if it is Godzilla.
Yep.
Whoa.
Yeah, I haven't seen the original Dragon Ball in years.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely got to go back and watch that.
It's disturbing, just in the sense that how much the bunt of the joke is mostly just about Bulma's body.
Right.
Like 16 at the time.
Right.
It's just like, oh boy. A lot of Pafu jokes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I guess
on that fun note.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, yeah, it's like anyway, back on. So yeah, so Calvin, why have you brought us here today?
Yes.
What is this?
What is this about?
Well, I've brought you guys here because one of you guys are a killer. I didn't really know how to. I forgot what the actual quote there was, so I totally fucked up that segue. We're really here to talk about some featured reviews. I wanted to talk about everyone's favorite Godzilla film from each era, the Showa era, the Heisei era, and the Millennium era. I was going to include the American films, but Quinn, you said that you haven't seen King of the Monsters, so I think we'll just go ahead and leave that one off.
Well, what about all the new Japanese ones?
You know, I would like to talk about Shin. I really don't like the anime. I'm going to throw that out there.
I have thoughts and feelings about that one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm like the only person that really enjoyed the anime, but it was more because as a Godzilla fan, I was frustrated most of the time. But as a fan of science fiction, like, you know, writing and like some of the ideas of it, thematically, I liked it. But I do understand.
The first one, I'm with you on that one. The first one, I was actually like, I don't know if it was a great Godzilla movie, but it was a really good sci-fi movie. And then as they kept going, I was just like, this is getting more and more unbearable.
Yeah, they have a lot of issues that I agree with, even if they're not were not issues necessarily to me or things that bothered me enough to dislike it.
Sure.
So yeah, well, I guess we'll touch on that. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, we'll definitely we'll devote
back.
a little time. Yeah. I'd like to talk about Shin a little bit, but oh, go ahead.
Did I say? I think that was my cat.
Oh, was it? Guy, your cat has a very deep voice.
Yeah, probably.
Special guest, Quinn's cat.
Quinn's cat, Kingsley.
Oh, Kingsley.
Who the shit is Kingsley Sisu? No Life Aquatic fans out there?
That's great. Oh, I got it.
There we go.
So we're gonna have to break Showa up into two parts here, because it's impossible to pick just one. So we're gonna break this up into first we'll talk about our favorite Honda Godzilla film, and then second half of that will be everyone else. Fukuda, Bano, you take your pick. So Chris, why don't you start us off with your favorite Godzilla film directed by Ishiro Honda?
Oh man. So gosh, okay, here we go. So it's a case of where if I feel it's always going to be a cop out if I mention that my favorite is the original Godzilla, the original Japanese version of it. It's
obviously right.
It's the obviously thing there. So it's like one of those, like, I'm just going to kind of leave that off the table. Sort of like it's a given. It's a given. If you don't,
absolutely,
you know. So out of the ones outside of that, so that would be more of the 60s era period films. I'm probably going to go with Destroy All Monsters for a few different reasons. Now, mind you, I've had a bit of a reevaluation period where I've begun to realize it is definitely got some sluggish parts to it, and so it's a film that I enjoy watching. But I mean, it was my favorite one as a kid, but it that's so much monsters, so much action. I love the miniatures and the ships and the aliens and all that. But the thing I felt with Destroy All Monsters is I think what makes it stand out against the others, like Invasion of the Astro Monster, Mothra vs. Godzilla, is that there's a certain formula to the Showa era Honda films that really got kind of, you could start to see it building with like Varan and Rodan. You kind of see it really kind of fall into place really with Mothra. And then after Mothra, it pretty much like, the way that like it's structured, the way that like there's the element of like another place, there's often like a jungle area or or tribes people or something, and then it comes to the city, and just like there's certain structure and flow that's pretty consistent through those films. So Gojira the three-headed monster works very much the same way. Invasion of the Astro Monster works that same way, just it's with space instead of like say a rural region or island. And what was cool about Destroy All Monsters is because of the fact it feels like almost like practically like a sequel to the films that came before it, because everyone's there, the whole gang is there. And the fact that it's also set in the future, it adds this kind of nice sort of almost Jerry Anderson Thunderbirds sort of art direction that kind of I felt elevates it a little higher. So it's a film that, even though I wish there was a little more story, a little more plot, a little more character, because Invasion of the Astro Monster, I really love the characters in that one, and I really like the plot and Geared to the Three-Headed Monster. But with Destroy All Monsters, it's like there's enough of the action itself, the creatures, and it's a really interesting looking movie to me. And you can see like Super Rai, I think, was getting ready to be done with working on those films, and so you can see that he kind of him and his team put all in. Like those city destruction scenes, I remember seeing them because I saw them first through the opening credit sequence of Godzilla's Revenge, or was it All Monsters Attack? Mm-hmm. And seeing that set piece, those set pieces, the set pieces just like blew me away as a kid. I was like, this is insane. This is great. It's so natural, and it feels so much more real and tactile than some of the other explosions in these other films, because the scale was especially like the skyscrapers was so well done. And then getting to see that in Destroy All Monsters, just like it was phenomenal. So yeah, I would land on Destroy All Monsters for the Honda ones, even though it's definitely it's kind of a hard pick in terms of the one that isn't the original. But there's a lot about it, and I also like that with Destroy All Monsters, it's very sci-fi, it's very colorful. It has that kind of, again, I guess like similar to what Honda was doing with other films like Latitude Zero. It's got all the yellow, it's got the the suits, it's got the vehicles. But it's then has his spy elements, because Honda like always had a tendency to add more spy plots, especially like in like Dagora has a bunch of it, and Astro Monster's got a bunch of it.
Ghidra's got a lot of it.
Exactly, because it's got the whole like the princess and all that stuff.
The kind of James Bond subplot going on.
Exactly.
Right? Princess who has amnesia.
Right. Yeah, but is possessed by a Venusian or something.
Right.
Yeah.
She's a clairvoyant.
Mm-hmm. And anyway, so Destroy All Monsters is the one for me, and also it's got extra points because it does have Varan briefly, it's got Baragon briefly, it's got was it Gorosaurus coming out of Paris and out of the ground, which I thought was a cool touch, and and all that good niceness.
Yeah, I'm so back and forth with Destroy All Monsters. I have a little bit of like a love-hate relationship with it, because when it's good, it's amazing, right? Mm-hmm. You're right. Mm-hmm. Those city destruction scenes are incredible, and I think the real unsung hero kaiju of that film is Manda. It's great to see Manda get his time in the sun, because if you've seen Atragon, he's barely in that film. He really has never gotten to do anything. So it's really cool to see him. He like wraps around the train tracks. Right. Yeah. I mean, he looks mean. He's a mean looking monster. He looks like a bad guy in that film. So I love all of that.
Weren't the shots of Varan in that one not even from like those were reused shots from a different film, if I remember correctly?
No, it was a puppet that they still had. It was the only working prop that they had left. Yeah, and I know they wanted to build new suits for Baragon and Varan. And oh gosh, there was another monster that they left out. Chris, do you know?
It's the
Gorath, right?
it's the one from Gorath. I think it's is Meguma, I think. Meguma. Let me hang looking it up. Gorath kaiju.
Yeah, they
they
couldn't get they didn't have the funds to do any of that. So really, you just get a cameo from Varen for sure. But yeah, you're right. There are parts of that film that drag. And it's funny, when it came to picking two movies at the Hollywood that I had to see, it's so funny, and this I think kind of perfectly encapsulates my love-hate relationship with Destroy All Monsters, because I looked at the list and immediately said, well, I have to see Destroy All Monsters, right? Because it's like it's Destroy All Monsters, you have to see it. But I think my heart really wanted to see Mechagodzilla and Gigan, right? I don't know. There's something about it where it's like I feel like I have to like it maybe a little bit more than I do, and that's why it's so highly regarded in my mind. I don't know. I have this weird love-hate relationship with it, and yeah, it gets a little slow toward the middle, and yeah, some of the like spy aspects to it, because right, I think the aliens are like infiltrating like this program and the government, and right, the she's got and is it Eureka Hoshi who's playing that character who has the earrings that are the transmitter, and she gets them ripped out, and
yeah, it's well, so let me see here. I'm taking a look here. There is Yukiko Kobayashi as Kyoko Manabe.
Yeah, okay. It's Kobayashi, yeah. I don't know.
That's right. Oh my god, that's right. She was in Vampire Doll. Holy cow.
Right. Which is another great collection, by the way. Just throwing that out there. Do you have the Blu-ray with
I don't know. I watched it off of Prime, but it's
really?
Yeah, it's still so good, and yeah, I still need to convince my dad of that. But that's another discussion, another time.
Yeah.
And that film pick was the famous miscolored poster of Ghidra, right, with the sort of blue and red wings and stuff like that. Where it was. Have you guys know about this?
The rainbow winged, yeah.
Yeah, and how they've actually now made toys based off of the original poster art. Yep. Pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, something nobody tells the person doing the coloring when they're going to market it. They don't know anything about this thing. They didn't read the script, so.
Right, it's the Bart Simpson shirt thing.
Right, exactly.
Cool.
So we sticking to Honda. Right now we're still just sticking to the Honda films, right?
Yeah, Showa Honda.
Yeah.
So yeah, why don't you go ahead, Quinn?
Yeah, it is. You're right. It's a tough thing because when you just say which is your favorite, that knee-jerk reaction is to just say, well, duh, 1954. But because it's just even tonally, it's so different than almost everything else that comes after it. And yeah, obviously it had such a big cultural impact, not just on their culture, but so many other cultures spanning out of that. But if I'm gonna, like you said, try to be a little more creative in my process of thinking and not just go with the knee-jerk reaction, then I think my money's on Invasion of Astro Monster. And oddly enough, for a lot of the same reasons Chris was kind of pointing out to. I mean, things that really just jump out in my mind are things like set design. And when you said that Thunderbird kind of thing, I was like, oh yeah, like that rocket ship kind of with a little sparkler coming out of the back and all that, and costume design. Those iconic alien suits with the collars and the stripe kind of over the face and all that stuff. It really works for me in a way that I thought was creative and interesting and different. And I do actually kind of like the plot. I feel like that is a plot that if I was an audience member at that time that movie came out, that whole trick of like, aha, but really we were lying. Right. We didn't need your help would have worked when I would be like, gasp, for reals? Like, so I really like all that stuff. And then come on, the Godzilla dance. I mean,
I was about to say,
it's got the Godzilla dance in
moment.
it. How do you beat that? How do you really, really beat that? But it's a hard pick. It's a hard pick from that whole lot.
Yeah, man. Invasion of Astro Monster. I think if you would have asked 7-year-old Calvin, I would have said no question. Invasion of Astro Monster. Monster Zero is great. There are so many quotable lines from that. One that I love, and I always say is at the end, all of you join me in escape, and they blow up their spaceships. I think that's just great. And Nick Adams. I first off, I love Nick Adams.
I was gonna say Glenn. I just love that.
He was in some great films too, some really fun horror films. But I mean, and he was in a really good episode of The Outer Limits. But I mean, he was in like Pillow Talk. I mean, he's not a scrub by any means. He's a great actor. But I love his scene with Namikawa, where his whole he's like, if you know how we're gonna get out of this, you better tell me, because all those things that we felt, they're not gonna amount to hill of beans. You hear?
Yeah.
Just great
and that was the thing. And that's the thing. Nick was one of the people that could actually pull that off too, because I mean that's I mean, there's always an energy to the American characters they have in those films, and Nick could pull that off so well.
Yeah. I just like what it spoke to too, as far as like this hopeful idea of cultures and countries merging and mixing together, and we're exploring space together and all this kind of stuff. It seemed to have an optimism there that I liked.
I don't know if I buy him as an astronaut though necessarily.
No. Didn't he drive like a sweet convertible and he had kind of I was into it. I was like, he's like this James Dean wannabe, kind of dude.
Well, that's what he's known as, the poor man's James Dean, because he was in Rebel Without a Cause. He's a small part in that.
Right.
And he's considered, because there's a few actors from Rebel Without a Cause that they all sort of died in weird ways, and Nick Adams was the last one to die in a really strange way. They still don't know if it was suicide or and
sorry,
have you guys heard his whole acceptance speech debacle from the Academy Awards? He was positive that and everyone was telling him, oh, you're gonna win. I think it was for the movie Pillow Talk. I think it was his character, and he went around Hollywood and he lobbied for it, and apparently he actually went to where the event was held, and he practiced his walk up to the stage. And he didn't win, and the cameras lingered on him, and he didn't clap. He was really, really upset. But I guess he got really, really depressed then, and really started taking sleeping pills at night because he was having issues. I guess it really messed with him.
Jeez.
So I've got a big soft spot for Nick Adams. I love Nick Adams.
Yeah,
Johnny, you are the rebel.
Yeah. I will say he was not the last one of the Rebel Without a Cause cast to die in mysterious ways, if you count Natalie Wood in the 80s.
You're right. Yeah.
It took her a while, but she got there.
she eventually found her way. And I will say one more thing about Astro Monster. The aliens in that one are so much cooler. I mean, they're infinitely.
Oh yeah.
They're not giant cockroaches, so by default.
Yeah, they're not giant cockroaches. They're not apes in disguise, and they're not just really hip, fashionable anime characters.
Yep. And like you said, so quotable too. Everything is numbered here. The monster is 0. Yes, on Earth you give this terrifying creature the name of Ghidra.
In the Japanese version of that too, he still kind of has a really strange speech pattern. I don't know if you guys have seen the Japanese cut of the film, but
I have.
It is great. It was something that they actually. I'm so glad they actually went to the work to translate it in a nice fashion too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The actor actually cared about that part. It seemed like the voice actor. Well, I'm glad that we all have different picks here.
What do you got?
And I'm glad that I don't have to say, well, of course, Gojira should be number 1 for Ichiro Honda. But that's what my brain says. And once again, so much of the Godzilla films are just so. A lot of it is nostalgic based for me. A lot of it, So Mothra versus Godzilla is probably the film that I have seen more than any other movie on the planet.
The Thing.
the thing. And that original American dubbing, I mean, this is one of those films that, of course I've seen the Japanese cut of the film, but 9.5 times out of 10, I'll watch the original Saperstein cut of the film. Is the thing Saperstein? Doesn't matter.
The thing was the Saperstein one, yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, I love the dubbing in that one. It's a little goofy, but once again, it kind of seems like the actors actually cared. And I just think pound for pound, when it comes to Mothra versus Godzilla, you get so much. It's probably the one that if like aliens came down and said, "Show us a Godzilla film," I don't know what one is. It might be the one that I show them. There are multiple great military attacking Godzilla scenes. Godzilla's reveal in that one is great, coming up out of the mud after the flood, with the earth moving and everything. There's like this really nice sort of brotherhood of man message to it that Hondo was pretty famous for, with the reporters Akira Takarada and Hiroshi Koizumi going to Mothra's island, and all the natives there. It's also got that anti nuke message as well, right? Because we had tested on their island for so long, and now you come here and ask Modra for help. It's got it's got a bunch of quotable lines. It's got a good message. Mothra is an extremely ambitious-looking kaiju for that time. It's not someone in a suit. It's this. I mean, it's this massive puppet with wireworks.
Or marionette, I guess, would be a more accurate description.
Yeah, and I think most of all, I really like the fact that Mothra's larvae beat Godzilla. They're able to defeat Godzilla without inflicting any sort of damage to him, which I think there's something about that really kind of appeals to the little kid in me who's still rooting for Godzilla. He's still alive. He doesn't even get hurt, and it's clever. I think that these little worms, right? That the big adult opposing Mothra, just couldn't get the job done, but these little babies are going to do it, and they're going to do it in a way that doesn't even hurt him. They're just going to outsmart him.
Sure.
I just think I honestly think it's a perfect film, but like I said, that is by far and away the movie that I've seen the most in my entire life.
Wow. Now I'm trying to remember. Is the photographer is he like the sidekick character to the main guy? Kind of. He's sort of almost a little more played as more comic relief. Junko, I think the. Yeah. And
Yuriko. Gosh. I
have the name here. Yuriko Hoshi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. If I remember, that character is kind of like more of a befuddled sidekick character, but kind of actually serves the movie really well. Like his performance was needed.
Right. It's Junko, right? She's like taking photos with the flash on outside, and I think Kenzu Tabu is Kumayama, the great entrepreneur. I mean,
Kumayama is Yoshibumi Tajima.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
The one that's trying to buy the egg.
Yeah, the Happy Industries guy.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, Kenji's Hara is Torahata, Mr. Torahata.
Yeah, the tycoon.
Right, yeah. And it's got that greedy capitalist angle. I mean, there's so many angles in that movie that are great. They kind of touch on a little bit of everything, right? Uniting together and this sort of anti-greed thing, and it's got a little bit of everything in it. I think it, and opening with the Terror of Godzilla theme. I mean, the movie just kicks right off.
It's a good pick.
Yeah,
it's not one that my brain went to immediately, but as I revisited, I'm like, you know what? That is a solid pick.
It's a good pick, yeah. I really need to watch that film again. It's been a while since I've watched it in its entirety.
Were there more? I'm trying to think of other versions of where we see Mothra where there's sort of more than one larva that then could become Mothra. Like,
there was the only other case of
other
having,
than Batra.
the double larva after the egg opens came. I actually just watched Tokyo SOS. And
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Much later.
That's the only one I can think of.
Mm.
Yeah, because that was the thing, right? The follow-up Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, reveals that one of the two died, and so there was just one left.
Mm.
Yeah. Bummer.
Which is kind of sad, because then Ghidorah comes along and shits all over one of the reasons why I really like that one, in that none of the monsters really get hurt by the end. It's like, no, one of them actually did. She got radiation poisoning and died of liver cancer or whatever.
Oh god, that poor larva.
Well, and one more thing. I'm sorry, I just keep thinking of things about that movie that I love.
Yeah.
I also love the self-sacrifice in that one, but in this movie, it's a monster that's self-sacrificing herself instead of it being like Serizawa or something. A Mothra. Right, she's waiting in the temple to die, and she knows that if she goes to fight Godzilla, that she's gonna die over there. And I really like that too. It kind of like adds a little tension to that fight, which is nice.
Yeah, it's a recurring theme through through many of the Godzilla films is the element of sacrifice, and I do notice that the ones that have that element executed well have often the kind of the best emotional impact, and some of the others on my list will end up covering some of that actually.
Right. All right. Well, I think we spoke enough about Mothra versus Godzilla.
Maybe.
So moving on, Chris. All right. Non-Honda Godzilla. I'm
Very
interested
nice.
to see what everyone's picks here are. Actually.
Yeah,
non-Honda Showa era Godzilla.
Yes,
right?
non-Honda
Okay.
Showa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that would be basically starting with Godzilla Raids Again, and then ending with Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla.
Right.
Sorry.
Oh, no,
Terra was Honda.
Terra is Honda.
Yeah. That's because that honorable mention for that, because for his last one, his last movie, he did probably the most amazing. He had the effects guys do the most amazing shot of the city destruction, where it's like
spins around. Right?
Yeah, and especially when there's that bit where, I mean, when we see it's like, oh, it levels the city. It's like, no, the whole city fucking explodes, and like you kind of just have to go in like it's like, okay, something's gonna happen, and then boom, and I've shown that to two other people, and they both have responded positively. Anyway, Showa, non-Honda. This one's a little tricky for me because I have a lot of love for like Godzilla versus the Sea Monster. I recently revisited Son of Godzilla, and really enjoyed that a lot more than I expected.
Me too.
And but I will land on Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla probably for some similar reasons for Destroy All Monsters. I will say the monster selection is great. I will always give kudos to a Godzilla movie that has Anguirus, who is my favorite of the kind of lesser, would be called almost like a B tier, monster. I literally had a Anguirus toy as a child that we got from one of those like things from another universe.
Right? Is it blue?
It was kind of bluish.
Yeah.
And I actually did use it as a hairbrush once, or twice, or 50 times. And so, the Anguirus being in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla is very cool. But also just, it's got a robot. It's one of the non-Planet X aliens is definitely one of the better ones. I like the sound effect of them when they transform is really gruesome.
Yeah. They're pretty scary, actually.
Yeah, they're intimidating little bastards. And I love Masaru Sato's score. I love that very jazzy, riffy. Sato did really good jazzy scores for the Fukuda films, and like King Caesar, and like the battles are great. The violence is kind of shocking. There's a great sense of like mystery and reveals through the entire movie. Like you don't entirely know because when I watched Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, I had no idea what it was going in. Like, as in, it was one of those. It just kind of, my dad just ordered it, through like Suncoast or something, and it was delivered to the house, and this VHS tape shows up and sits down and watch it. And it's like, whoa, okay. And it's a film that I've come back to multiple times, and being able to see it on the big screen, I think definitely has a big part of it. But it's just there's that great mixture of characters, plot, monster, action, great color palette, great score. And the mayhem in it is despite the fact that most of the battle sequences take place in like more rural regions. I mean, still rocks are getting exploded, mountains and hills are getting blown up a bit, and then that one bit near the I think it's an oil refinery. When the Mechagodzilla was first revealed, there's a lot of pyro. There's a lot of pyro.
It looks hot.
Exactly. Yeah. And, it creates this wonderful dramatic image across, especially when you get to see the full, widescreen scope version of it, the Toho scope version. It just looks so sharp and dramatic. And it's just a big blast of a film. I wish I could be have more kind of deeper things to say about it. But when it comes to the non-Honda films, obviously the big kind of talker one that's, good to have a lot of themes is Smog Monster, obviously, which is a film that I enjoy a lot, but it freaked me out as a kid. And I've never really, I think, ever gotten over that because I frankly saw it a little too young, to be honest.
Interesting.
I will say, I saw Godzilla vs. Smog Monster when I was probably about 6. So that shot of the kitten covered in the sludge, freaked me the fuck out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean and it just gets so deathly quiet. But but yeah, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla is that excellent blast of fun and excitement, and so that's for me, that when I think of like the definition of old Godzilla being good to me is that it's where it's fun done well, because I think the problem is that people like to really say like, oh, they're trash and the suits and blah 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 and it's cheesy. Right. And the main thing is they're theatrical. And what I love about Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla is it is very theatrical, and it's so big and broad, and it has this good versus evil, these great, and again, the spy movie kind of action, noir type tropes. I mean, even the stuff like on the chase stuff, like on the boat, feels more like
yeah.
I mean, that feels like something like a Sonny Chiba movie, I mean, it's just a blast. And I even love, that really the corny guy with the bell bottoms and the trench coat, who's, it's
the good spy, right?
The good spy.
Smoking the skinny cigarette, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, it's like, it's just, you got dyed cigarettes there. Okay. But yeah, no, it's
grandfather. That's the only thing I can think of. That's always just with the grandfather.
King Caesar.
King Caesar. Yeah, like actually, the King Caesar reveal is really cool with that, like mountains crumbling away and stuff.
And that's the thing. King Caesar. I was just gonna say, it's just with King Caesar, man. I mean, his ears flip up. It's like the best thing,
And that's the one with the little like statue of him, right? Yep. Like a little like idol version of it. Like I like when I saw that, I was like, somebody has to have like made that on Etsy, right? Like, because I wanted that in my house, and like nobody has made it yet. So if anybody's really crafty out there wants to carve one and then cast it for all of us, I would love to own one of those.
I've never thought about that, but
I really when I saw it, I was like, oh, somebody else has already thought what I've thought before, but I have not found it yet.
Now I really need one of those.
Right?
Oh man, that's
awesome.
Definitely.
I'd have that. I'd put that next to my Godzilla figure in box that's based on the NES game.
There you go.
One thing. First off, I love Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. It's funny, as a kid, I didn't really. I don't know what it was about that one, but I really didn't like it, and it wasn't until, I don't know, probably preteen era that I really, really started appreciating that one. It's really visceral. It's really violent too. There's a lot of blood in that one. And like you said, the fires and the explosions and the colors are amazing. The score is amazing. One funny thing, that movie is what taught me that the sun rises in the east and sets.
Yes.
Because they say when the sun rises in the west and sets in the east. So as a really little kid, I remember even in elementary school, being really proud of myself because I knew that. I have this memory where I was like, oh, I know that. And I know that because of a Godzilla film. But yeah, that one's great. I love the King Caesar song. I know that people goof on it, but I think it's great. And you know, I really wish that they would have made a Caesar standalone film.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
The sun god of Okinawa. I would love to see one set during World War II.
I was wondering if you were going there. Yeah.
The battle for Okinawa, and they awaken King Caesar to protect.
That'd be a World War II era Daimajin film, basically.
Yeah. Come on. But it's a awesome sun god lion dog thing.
The old sun god lion dog. We all know it. That film must have been the origin of the finger blasters too, right? Right? It's the first time that Mechagodzilla's there, so he's shooting his little finger missiles off, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's right.
God, yeah.
Doesn't his toes do it too?
Yeah, his
I
knees.
think so. His
Knees.
knees. That's right.
His
Yeah.
Knees.
Yeah, he's got those spiked like motorcycles or skateboard pads. Whatever.
Right, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, man. He's got everything. I mean, he's like an arsenal. Yeah, the Godzilla suit catches on fire at one point. I mean,
right.
Yeah, they really let loose with that film, for sure. For sure. Yeah, that's
we could easily segue back to mine because Chris and I must be of like mind because for sure, unquestionably, it's the smog monster. And I always struggle with it. Is it for you guys? Is it Hedorah or Hedorah? Which one do you guys go with?
I always go with Hedorah.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah.
Okay.
Hedorah.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's do that one. Or Smog Monster for the.
I always
other
call him
title.
Smog Monster though.
Yeah. But I'm actually wearing a shirt of him right now. That's how much my love is for this film. I see it as this just weird one-off, sort of just far out there, and honestly, I would say even beyond its relevance as a Godzilla film to me, it's more like I look at that film as a weird time capsule of a slice of life of a country that was just like only 100 years ago barely embracing modernization, and like here we are trying to catch up with the trends and the music styles of the West, and we're getting discos and we're getting all the fashion and that psychedelic movement and stuff like that. Right. And sure, the environmentalist sort of hippie attitude to boot, and yeah, it does go back to, it is this one to come back to like, oh, we can still actually say something with one of these films. It doesn't have to just be straight schlock for the kiddies. So there's a lot of things I really enjoy about it. And it is a little on the brutal side. I don't specifically have the imagery of the cat coming to mind, but the fact that the monster flies over people and they just turn to skeletons is pretty brutal for a kiddie sort of Godzilla film.
They suffocate. They suffocate from. Yeah.
And then just melt away. And but it's absurdity. I don't know how the whole disco scene. It's almost starts to get into a fear and loathing sort of trippy, scene, and everything is just so bizarre and sometimes frankly laughable. But almost its uniqueness in that regard is actually what makes me love it that much more. The band playing out in the middle of the field almost with the monsters fighting behind them, like where are they getting power for their electric instruments? Who cares? Like we're grooving, like, and the camera's zooming in and out really quickly, and it's just like all wah pedals and just like it's just such its own thing and so unapologetic in its delivery that I'm just like, yep, that's the one. I just love it. I love it to death.
Yeah,
Quinn,
I was just gonna say it's a great choice, and just that, the whole save the earth angle. It's like, to laugh, you have to laugh so you don't go insane, I think, because they're just it's such a crazy movie,
and it's such a cool origin of a monster too. Like when you really think about that, it's like, oh no, it's this little microorganism that, like, because of us, it turns into this other thing, and that's cool. Like,
yep. And I also was going to say, the other reason I think that film freaked me out so much as a kid is because I had a lot of asthma as a child, and I probably had pneumonia at the time.
So breathing was a problem.
Right. Hacking up little smog monsters out of your lungs.
Yeah.
Well, Quinn, I got to say, I love you so much. You're like, you're my new best friend. You are the only other person that has the same pick as me. Actually, I've done 2 videos for my YouTube channel, and I always come back to Godzilla versus the Smog Monster.
So
I mean, it might be my favorite of the entire series.
Wow.
It might be my favorite. Granted, there's a little bit of that nostalgia factor for me. I watched this one over and over again. I'm also a huge horror fan, and I feel like, I obviously started with sci-fi films and monster films. I feel like this is the movie that
where these films
bridged
came
the gap.
from.
Yeah, it bridged that gap for me. It's got a lot of horror elements to it. I love the anti-pollution angle. I can appreciate that Bono was doing something very different here and was really going against the grain, and I mean, he was blacklisted for it.
Really?
This was the last film that he directed for Toho for years and years. It may have been the last one in general. Since you like this film so much, and I know you said that you haven't seen a lot of, you have to see Prophecies of Nostradamus, Catastrophe 1999.
Yeah,
is
also a Showa era film.
And that is my
Space
favorite.
Slugs or something, right?
Very briefly.
Okay.
That movie is so nightmarish. I did a reference this film on that really early on, and I'd love to do another video on that film. It's an incredibly hard movie to describe because it's really told in just like a series of vignettes of the world ending, and the movie is funny. It's about Nostradamus predicting the end of the world, but that movie has predicted a lot of things that have actually come to pass. Like
That's
a
cool. 'Cause
giant.
it's set in 1999 or something at the time, right? Which was future for them.
There's a part in that film where the world's ending, and it's like a progression over years, and there's a giant earthquake that damages the Fukushima power plant.
Oh, how about that?
And
Wow.
that's actually come to pass.
That is crazy.
That movie was written by Yoshimitsu Banno, and I guess he's also credited somewhere else in there, but on like all the commentaries and everything, everybody says that like that's his film. And after Hedera, he wasn't after Hedera, he wasn't allowed to really do anything in Toho. I guess that he screened the film for a lot of the Toho bigwigs like Shinichi Sekizawa and a lot of those guys, and they all told him that he ruined the franchise.
Yeah. I'm reading some of the details. I'm really reading some of the details here about that, and it sounds like Tanaka basically, watched it and just fired him practically. I guess it sounds like practically on the spot. And
and he was like super blacklisted for
and at the
time.
And my understanding was that back in those days, because I know this is what happened to Seijun Suzuki as well, is that if you got fired from one of these studios, they could basically keep you out of the business, and that was why. Suzuki winning his court case in the early 70s was an amazing because in that case they actually breached their contract. I think Toho was a little smarter than Nikatsu was with dealing with those types of situations, that they could fire somebody and not have to worry about paying wages, because if Banno wasn't a contract guy, that it was being given a yearly salary, then that was probably fine. Because in Suzuki's case, he actually literally lost work and lost years of salary because of that, so he was able to successfully sue. So unfortunately,
but that didn't get reversed. I'm looking. It says the budget was 90 million yen and it made 300. million.
It made its money back.
It
definitely
definitely made money. So
it wasn't a failure. They hated the movie, and Bono stayed under contract, and he had to. I mean, like I said, he was able to work on movies like Catastrophe 1999, and he has a writing credit. He has a second unit director credit, but I guess rumor is that that's really his film, and it's pretty much Godzilla versus the Smog Monster without any kaiju in it.
I'll have to look at it. Yeah, I'd love to take a closer look.
You have to watch that movie. I think you would really like it. It's really dark, and it's got this very sort of pessimistic view of the shape of things to come that Hedera has.
Right.
I mean, I think that he's a genius. I'm really sad that he was never able to do his follow-up film, because I guess he originally intended on continuing this Godzilla fighting pollution monsters. He was going to do another one, and then actually Bono is credited in the new American Godzilla films, because Bono successfully got the rights from Toho to do a sequel to Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. I believe in like 2008 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
3D to the max, and it never ended up happening. But I guess through that acquisition.
When would that have been? Did you say the 80s?
Oh no, it would have been the 2000s, like pre 2010.
Wow.
Yeah. But it would have been like I think like 2008, something like that. And it didn't happen, but I think through the acquisition of the copyright is how Legendary was able to make these American Godzilla films. They ended up getting it from Bono. So if you look in the credits, he's credited for the 2 new Godzilla films. He's got
Yeah.
I don't know.
He has executive producer. Yeah. Special thanks and executive producer credit. He shows up, and at least in the newest one, yeah. And I believe for Gareth Edwards' one as well. But yeah, it says so. Legacy. This is from the Wikipedia page because we are decent scrubbed here at Attack of the 70-Foot podcast for the Wikipedia use. Banno spent several years trying to acquire funding for a 40-minute IMAX 3D Godzilla film starring a new version of Hedorah called Deathla. The project was tentatively titled Godzilla 3D to the Max. The project was eventually scrapped.
You weren't joking about that.
But several members of the production team, including Bono, would work on the 2014 Godzilla. So he may have had some
some deal going.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can't say enough about Smog Monster. You took a lot of the words right out of my mouth, but I think that I love the cartoon interludes and
yeah, that's right. The Schoolhouse Rock. I forgot about that.
Right.
It's so good. Those parts are so good.
So dark, man. I mean, there are people dying on screen in that movie directly because of, innocent people, right? They're not even they're not villains. I mean, they're just like people in the schoolyard, and Hedorah flies over and they all collapse because they can't breathe. I mean, there's so many things to love about that movie, and Hedorah is a criminally underrated kaiju. He's really mean. He's powerful.
He's pretty awesome in the PS4 game too.
He's got 2 forms. He's got that flying sort of UFO form. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah, man. It's gotta be Smog Monster. Gotta be.
For sure.
And especially because one of the things, just if I may just tack on one last little thing, is it's really cool and indicative of how in the 70s there were many Japanese films of the kind of sci-fi fantasy genre. They get pretty bleak and they get pretty dark. Like there was that Legend of Dinosaur and Monster Bird. That movie's amazing. Yeah,
that's Daiei, right?
That's Daiei, I believe. Yeah, and it's a fun movie. It's a great Jaws ripoff, but holy cow, that ending is so bleak. The heroes basically die in a freaking volcano. Like, I mean, and so like the people that like try, so they it's like. I don't even remember if they win. It's like it's almost like it doesn't even matter. You just feel so freaking depressed.
Everybody dies.
Yeah,
dinosaurs and heroes alike, they all die. And one more thing on Smog Monster, I'm also a VHS completist, and the holy grail for me were the VHS releases of Smog Monster. They're very hard to find. They're really expensive when you can find them online. It was only released ever twice with the old dub on it. I mean, you can get the DVD, but like I said, in the 2000s, they did a whole new track for it, and it's just not the same. So you can either get the Orion release of it that has just the coolest goddamn cover in the entire world.
Look that up right now.
It's great, and that took me forever to get, and I finally had to settle and get it online. I just came to my senses and figured I was never going to find that one in the wild.
Oh yeah, this one.
Yeah.
I know this.
Up so many late fees because of that.
I bet.
I made my dad drive me to a specific Hollywood video across town because it was the only one we knew of that had Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. So that was my holy grail. And then there's an even more limited release from Semistar. I don't know if I'm saying that correct. It's another very small releasing company, VHS, back I think in the early 90s, with the most god-awful VHS cover art in the entire world. Looks like a third grader drew it with some like colored markers or something.
Yep. I remember renting a couple of editions from this group. It might have been I actually rented this box from a Hollywood Video, and I'm pretty sure my parents rented for me the Sea Monster one from this group too. Yeah.
And that release, believe it or not, I go to the Portland VHS swaps all the time, and there was this guy there who had a bunch of stuff that he really didn't know what it was worth, and it was like he had stuff that was out on the table, and then he had this box, and I was just like digging through his box because I saw some other things that looked like they didn't need to be in the $2 box, and I found it in there, and this is like a $90 tape online. How much do you want?
What
for
is
this?
he charging? Yeah.
And he goes, well, everything in the box is $2, and I gave him a $5 bill. I gave him a $5 bill, and I was like, dude, just you can keep the $5. And he looked at me like I was crazy.
Yeah.
He was just like, okay, you want to pay more than double for this shitty Godzilla, cover that has horrible cover art. I was like, you have no idea what this is. So yeah, I mean, Smog Monster also has a special place because it was also kind of the redheaded stepchild as far as like its release as well. It didn't get the widest release, certainly not as wide as some of the other Godzilla films. Like Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla was everywhere,
Right.
And for those people listening who are not going to go look this stuff up, I'm on eBay. A Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster Orion VHS new, it says. I don't know if that means it's still in the shrink wrap or not. $150. So that is not a cheap VHS.
Not surprised. Yeah, just to add on to what you're saying about the theatrical release, I mean, basically the word is that when AIP released it, it was a double feature with Frogs in 1972.
Oh, that would have been awesome. That would have been a great double feature.
We'll have to recreate that in just at home, just a double feature night.
Are you listening? Hollywood Theater?
Yeah, right.
Oh, man.
Oh, great.
Well,
awesome.
Is that it? Does that do it for the... Did we just
that does it for Showa?
Yeah. All
right.
Well done.
Chris, take it away.
Move us into the Heisei.
Heisei era. Cool. So this one, it was one that I wasn't sure what I thought of when I was a kid. I kind of grew to like it a little more when I got older, and now it definitely has landed as the favorite of the 90s era, 80s, 90s era is Godzilla vs. Biollante.
Oh, yeah.
And
figured that was good.
Yeah, and it's a little difficult because I love the miniatures in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla '93. The building destruction in that is just so beautifully executed, and the slow-mo, like they even just got the frame rate perfect for the cameras when when Rodan gets thrown into one of those things. And I love the scope of the ones in King Ghidorah as well. But with Biollante, it's a case of, the story I really liked. I love the themes of Biollante as a creature. There's this really wonderfully melancholy, like kind of strangely warm feeling about like the way like this idea of like all these kind of life forms, sort of connected, and the idea of how in some sense the gene splicing is a way of showing that all life is connected, that we're all part of this one organism, which I don't know. I'm a weird sappy guy like that, and it's something that's really cool. And at the same time, it allows for vine tentacle attacks. It also allows for, that great silly bit where they have to, use the chemical weapon and get into Godzilla's mouth. And the soldier the soldier says something like, it's like, this stuff will,
smoking.
You better stick to smoking. This stuff will kill you.
Right.
And it's and I even love the history of the movie and the story of how it was basically like a spec script from like a competition or something. It was how it got, and like just so many things about it that I just really dig. And even that stupid dorky, because I remember when I was a kid, the dub, I didn't really understand if the acting was good or not. And this person online in some IRC chat room when I was like 11, I was like, oh, I love Godzilla vs. Biollante. The guy says, oh man, if you know Japanese, that that actor playing the mercenary, he's a terrible actor. And I'm just like, and even today, I'm just like, fuck off. I love it. I love it. I love it anyway. I've written so many mercenary characters that I think at some point I'm gonna just do one where it's like he's got the stupid fingerless gloves. He uses I think he uses like a Dragunov or something, and the suit and the glasses and that beard. That beard is so insane because it's so conspicuous and memorable. And there's so much that I dig about it. And that's another good one when we're talking about the multiple forms of Smog Monster. Biolante's two forms being so drastically different are amazing. And I really wish that the flower version got a little more play because it's
I
a
love
beautiful
the rose version. It's
awesome.
beautiful.
Little Shop of Horrors on steroids.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And I mean that, I think that's one of the reasons why when I got older and much later in life ended up seeing or much later my time so far on this planet, seeing Little Shop of Horrors. I mean, I loved the design of Tui, and I'm still so mad that the studio cut the original kaiju flavored ending of that. But that's all.
It's out there. It
is out there now.
Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah, the Blu-ray version's now out there, so I need to finally pick that up. But yeah,
I think they pulled it or something. Now it's the limited release. I don't know.
For fuck's sake, man.
Yeah, I think I have it. I was a little underwhelmed with that alternate ending, but that's just me. All right. Sorry to derail the conversation.
No, it's cool. Yeah, it's all good. And as I'm looking here, I mean, this is the thing is Biollante is another one of those Godzilla films that has so much stuff it's easy to forget. It's even got Super X2. It's got which again, being as a kid, growing up with Thunderbirds and Stingray and Captain Scarlet and Ultraman and all that, just the vehicles were just so rad. And Super X2 was great with the whole, and I love that it's the idea of the reflective technology. Yeah, that was great. And there's just so much great stuff. And and it's another wonderfully nostalgic, cheesy dub, which unfortunately I think the Blu-ray I have of it doesn't include the English dub, but it's or maybe it has the English dub, but doesn't have the Japanese. I don't know. It's one of those cases. It's a single track on it. It's one of the cheap releases. But yeah, the effects were amazing. It's maybe not necessarily the characters are really great, but there's a certain energy about it that I just really appreciate. And as much as, there's great stuff I feel all through the Heisei era that I feel is kind of underrated in some ways. I think that period for modern movie fans that watch Godzilla films, that just happen to watch Godzilla films occasionally, I think they don't pay enough attention to like Return of Godzilla /85 or, King Ghidorah's got some fun stuff. Mechagodzilla's got, some really, some kind of goofiness that's really fun. And also some really, and that one also had a very good score, which Biollante is a pretty good score. But it's not, like how
it's an underrated score for sure.
Right.
I was actually going to mention that. I really enjoy the score in Godzilla vs. Biollante.
Exactly. Yeah. It was Koichi Sugiyama. I'm going to look up this name because it sounds familiar. I probably played some. Oh, what am I saying? This is the Dragon Quest guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
The Koichi Sugiyama. Yeah. Yep. I just saw a video about this guy, so yeah, I know who this is. Yep. Anyway, there's also a very controversial figure because of his perspective on the Nanjing massacre and LGBTQ community. Oops.
He's I can't. Are we allowed to use the different generation excuse for him? I don't know.
He is 88 years old. Maybe we can. Yeah. Maybe we could let that slide.
We'll give him a pay. He's almost gone anyway. He's out there. Or he already is. Something like
your opinions don't matter, old man.
Yeah, he's almost out the door. It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah,
this era definitely had some of the coolest poster art though for all the
Orai.
How do you say his name?
Orai.
Orai. Those posters, and even Biollante in particular, is like woohoo! That is a gorgeous poster.
And they actually used that poster for the HBO VHS release of it. I actually have 2 copies of that VHS. It's a really mean looking cover. I love the green. That thing pops.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember. Let's see. So it was released on HBO Home Video November 25th, 1992. Thank you, Wikipedia. But I remember at the video store. So I would have been I was about 6 and a half, and just seeing that, and it's like, oh my god, it's a new Godzilla movie, because I thought they were done. I'd seen most of the ones up to then, and I thought that was kind of it. And man, and that's the thing. I think what's also really cool about Biollante is that it was the first new monster in quite a while, and it's also, I think, since then there hasn't been quite as creative of a new monster since it as well.
Oh,
So,
no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that she is one of the most creative monsters out there. I mean, it's a really like cerebral film when you think about it. It really kind of, I mean, it sort of mixes science and spiritualism, and it's like you said, it's very melancholy. Even Biolante's cry, she's got the one cry out of the other monsters that's like haunting, you know.
And part of it is part of it's because they use the whale sounds as kind of the main bass, and then they either pitch it up or pitch it down or like slow it down, and there's something, and it feels also very distinctive, while also being very emblematic of the Japanese sci-fi tokusatsu kind of style of that period. Yeah, that's a great film. That's one that I really, really liked as a little kid. There was something about the another kind of not as talked about aspect of this series is the one running character, Miki Sagusa. Is that her character? Right. I'm trying to find her.
Yeah, she has the psychic connection with Godzilla.
She's had to have appeared in almost, well, no, because there's the guy from the Showa era that's in like all of them, but she appeared in a lot of them.
She was the one with the ears.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yep, that's the one.
She's in all of them except
Godzilla Jr.
For, yeah. I think she's in all of them except for Godzilla Returns '85. I think
that's correct.
I think that's the only one she isn't in. But I really liked that aspect of it. I really liked the aspect of like, God, doesn't she like teach the school with psychic children? And there's this great scene where she comes in and all the kids are drawing all these psychic children. And she's like, what are you guys drawing? And all the kids hold up a picture of Godzilla, and then it immediately cuts to Godzilla coming ashore. I think that's a great moment. Like, that one's sort of like the Hedorah of the Heisei era. It's like it's so different from the others in the series, and I think sometimes is overshadowed, and the people who love it really, really love it, but I feel like maybe the main G fan base kind of overlooks it. But I figured that was going to be someone's pick in here.
Well, it's hard because I mean, if I can jump into mine, like this era in particular, it's like they're all winners for me. I mean, really, I feel like this era really knocked it out of the park. It kind of starts to bridge that gap between both nostalgia and modern, like in a weird way, where it's like anybody can look at the old Showa films and kind of feel like, like, oh, like we've progressed so much in the way we present things visually that it seems dated, and you can make arguments that some of that's timeless in another way, but here it's like it's got this nostalgia kick to it, this very and when somebody else brought up earlier the notes of like, was it Hedorah they were talking about that they thought was more like a horror film or something, like that's what this one is. Biollante is to me, like in particular. It's like I saw that the first stills of that and I was just like, that's like Stan Winston, like classic, like just cover it in fucking gooey shit, like just dripping wet, like everything's really gritty and grisly and just like real, and like it's so practical. It's that kind of classic era of the practical monster effects, that gave us the xenomorphs and aliens and all that kind of stuff, even though it was the 70s, but it's the birth child of all those things. And so I feel like all of these, I think a lot of people, especially the big G fans, like kind of shit on Space Godzilla. I like that one a lot. I really like Destroya. I think Destroya is just like thematically, like it's tying it all back to like the Oxygen Destroyer and stuff, is like, okay, this is all really cool, but none of those are my picks because again, there's something about the wild ones, the absurdity, the underdog. I don't know. There's something about I for some reason I'm really drawn to Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. Like as
God damn it, are you gonna pick all of my?
I'm just gonna pick all of your picks. We're we're brothers from another mother. It really is. It's just.
I need to buy you a beer, man.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm ready. We can talk all day about this, and we can just have movie. I'm not joking. Like I'm fine with like pajama party, like popcorn, like get some. Do they still make stuffed crust pizza? Can we eat it backwards while we're watching Godzilla movies? Like, because that's happening now. Oh
God, he's running.
We can see him. He's running.
Yep. Yeah, he's running.
He has in his freezer.
None of our listeners can see this, but I'm literally holding up a stuffed crust pizza in front of the goddamn computer.
It's getting eerie now. Man, that's awesome. Well,
I think everybody out there doesn't realize they are seeing the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Exactly. But no, it's just that absurdity of it, the wackiness of it, everything about it. Like, it's one of those ones where if you didn't know the movie or weren't that familiar with Godzilla movies and you read the Wikipedia plot summary, you'd be like, this is a fever dream of somebody's Godzilla movie. None of this makes any sense. Like, as you it's just so convoluted for no reason, and like time travel and just and it was like the people making it were like just got out of Terminator and they were like we're doing that, like, you know what I mean, like it's like what, like why is there a cyborg and who runs really fast or something, and the Dorat and the Dorat, like all these just weird off the wall shit, like, and it's just like it's easy almost to make fun of it, but I fucking love it. Like I love how absurd and just like nonsensical, and the plan makes no sense. Like when you think about it, it's like, what? If you have time travel, you could have avoided all of this. Why did you have to? Whatever. But
instead of go because they do that. There's like, okay, we're gonna come back in time. We're gonna get rid of Godzilla. We're gonna get Ghidra there. Okay, wait, we need to go get Godzilla again. Okay, wait, we need to go get Mecha Ghidra. It's like, why don't you just go back in time and not do any of this?
Exactly. But we need to take you guys from the past back to a different past so you can do it. Like what? Why? Like, but yeah. Speaking of Mecha King Ghidra, I mean, come on, like the coolest thing ever. And there's that nostalgia factor. That was the toy that I had as a kid that I was just like, I'm the coolest. Like I have a, and like that way to me that almost was King Ghidorah, right? Because I played with that toy so much. Like that was the version of him that I knew him as. Like and then the video games and stuff that came out around that time, you know.
Yeah, Super Godzilla had him for sure. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So that was for me. That's why it kind of has a mixture of everything I love about it. Now again, like if you asked me to pick one that was like cinematically, you know, a better movie, more well-made film, there are others in that era that I would point to. I think this one's absurd as all get out, but that's kind of also how I feel about the Smog Monster, and that's what I love about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a great choice. It's a fantastic choice.
You take the
I'm sorry to steal it.
I'm
sorry. Yeah. You probably have more to say about it. I'm sure you could talk more about it.
I mean, really, once again, the nostalgia factor is a big one that does it for me. This was one that I got from Japanese relatives, and you know, it was in Japanese. It didn't have, you know, it was a VHS tape. It didn't have closed captioning. There was, you know, I couldn't understand it at all, and I remember getting it. Going over to my Obachan's house, and she had it, and then of course she just decided to watch it. It's not like she watched it without me, and it's a Japanese film and she speaks Japanese, like why wouldn't she watch it? And I just have this vivid memory of her like kind of translating for me, but she's more watching the film, you know, and not really knowing what was going on. And talk about a movie taking a zillion left turns. Imagine being a 9-year-old not knowing what anyone's talking about, and then it's like, what where are they going? They're in the spaceship, and now they're in World War II now. What are we doing in World War II? I mean,
we're gonna reference Spielberg out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean and that scene that is probably might be my favorite scene of the movie, where they go back and the Godzilla-saurus defends the Japanese troops, and they have that really kind of heartmuch moment where
they connect with it while it's dying, and so
Right, I love, and the payoff to it especially makes it so much better in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, just that it's so whacked and crazy, and I also remember getting the VHS of it. The American VHS of it and watching it for the first time with the dubbing and just being so excited, like, oh, I can't wait, and like watching it with my friends and telling them, oh man, you know, wait, he blows off the middle head. Ghidra's middle head gets blown. I mean, the fight scenes in it are great, and it really it sort of is one of those films in the franchise that's perfect to show to a kid, because once again, that
definitely
it just takes off. I mean,
the movie toy factor for sure.
Yeah, and the movie opens with, all right, the spaceship has landed, and the military is pulling up to this spaceship. I mean, it's got a little bit of everything. It's just such a fun one. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's definitely not the best. It's not the best script. It doesn't have the best effects. It doesn't have a new monster. It's not even really a story. Like the overall concept of it, aliens coming down and stealing.
At this point is just almost throwback to earlier Godzilla films. Like, just we'll do one in this series too, like where it's all the same tropes.
God damn, if it just doesn't.
It's just fun.
For some reason.
So much fun.
Good, clean fun.
It's kind of like, what if you decided to just shoot the treatment without a script in a way?
Right.
So like all these it's like, and then this happens, and this happens, this happens.
It's literally like a kid playing with toys making a movie is what
exactly.
It is. Like, I've got my Terminator toy and my Aliens toy, and I've got my it's great.
That really felt like one for the fans after Biollante. Maybe it was like a little too different, and you're right. It almost feels like they brought in a 15-year-old fan of the series and said, "What do you want to see?" Like, I want aliens and time travel, but I want Godzilla to come back bigger and meaner. So they gotta go. It's like, what? It's just. It is. It's a little kid's version of a Godzilla film, and it's amazing.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. My pick too.
Ashley, interesting thing. The new producer that took over because of Tanaka's deteriorating health, the new producer felt the financial failure of Godzilla vs. Biollante was due to the plot being too sophisticated for child audiences, and thus intended to return to some of the fantasy elements of the pre-1984 Godzilla films. Yep. Another also cool trivia, little bit of detail. I was curious into the effects for it because, I mean, the miniatures of the city were like probably the best that the series has ever had. Just the amount of molding and detail on those skyscrapers is just insane. So the special effects director was Koichi Kawakita, who also worked on as a special effects director for Gunhead, as well as Biollante, King Ghidorah, Mothra, Megazilla 2, Space Godzilla, Destroyer, and the first two Rebirth of Mothra films. However, are you gentlemen aware of a film called Sayonara Jupiter?
Nope. No.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Sayonara Jupiter. Here, let's see.
Okay, I can sum it up as a mid-1980s sci-fi disaster movie. I will try to make this brief because this will be a bit of a tangent because this is a long movie. Like, this is a 129-minute film that feels like it's probably another 30 minutes longer than that. Essentially, there is a moving black hole that is going to move through the solar system and is going to swallow our sun. They're going to use Jupiter and explode it to cause a supernova to basically blow up the black hole to stop the singularity from happening.
Sure.
And this leads to all this people have been looking at this Jupiter project because they've been doing all these other projects around the solar system, and they're looking at it like it's they're anthropomorphizing it. Like, it's this beautiful thing and you shouldn't do it. And so you've got hippies, you've got domestic eco-terrorists, you've got sci-fi intrigue, you've got big spaceships, you've got zero-G sex scenes, you've got I like to describe him as a Japanese hippie Jesus playing a guitar singing a song to a dolphin named Jupiter.
For sure.
Huh. I mean, it looks beautiful. I'm looking at the trailer right now.
Oh, it
looks incredible.
It's an insane movie, but it has these amazing special effects. It's got a huge budget. It's for its time, for the mid 80s, and it's I don't know if it was a success. I mean, when you get to the ending, the almost like practically, fuck off to the audience at the end is just like, what? Yeah, I sicked that on a friend of mine, and she was not allowed to booze up while watching, and I'm not entirely sure. I'm very much not entirely sure that she has forgiven me for that, and that was like 10 years ago.
Is this on DVD and Blu-ray?
Yeah, it's on DVD for sure, because I watched it on DVD back, I want to say my first time watching it was about 2008, 2009.
Well, so I gotta get me a copy.
Oh yeah, you do. So yeah, Koichi Kawakita, visual effects on King Ghidorah, and yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add on that film. I mean, you guys covered most of it. I did want to say that, like many of the Heisei film era, I actually watched it similar to Calvin's situation, but not similar, but not quite. It was imported VHSs. There was a guy, what was his name? Doug Rotondi, I think. It was, I can't even remember what his business was called, but he was one of those, like, my dad found him through Usenet back in the early 90s and would order, tapes from him. So I got to, and they were widescreen, but no subtitles. So that's how I saw Ghidorah, Mothra, Mechagodzilla 2, and Space Godzilla. And so, so that's another film that, I had similar experience. I had no idea what was happening, but it was cool and it was fun.
Yeah, I still have my I know that I still have my Mechagodzilla 2 tape from Japan.
Nice.
I don't think I have my others, but yeah, I think it was King Ghidorah, Mechagodzilla, and Mothra. I know for sure that I had from Japan, and then I had some of the Showa films, which I will say, I prefer the Showa movies. Honestly, I like pound for pound. I think that they're just
more to choose from.
They're more nostalgic for me, and there are more monsters in them, and they're kind of goofier, which I enjoy. I kind of like the superhero Godzilla aspect. I just know that you mentioned you guys kind of touched on like which era you guys preferred, and I didn't get a chance to say that during our Showa discussion. So
and that's the craziest thing. I don't know if there is for me anymore, if there's a preferred era. I mean, that's why I'm so glad we're doing these favorites per era, because it's like I don't know if I have like a favorite anymore. I just love them all. It just depends on your mood.
Absolutely. It totally depends on the mood.
Yeah.
I mean, there are times where, and I've done a whole video defending it. I really like Godzilla's Revenge, All Monsters Attack. I think it's got a good message. I think
Who wouldn't like that movie? I think that movie's great.
Yeah,
the kid
narration alone is like worth the price of admission. I just love that narration.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. And you get to have a kid take on mobsters.
Right.
That's like the ultimate child's power fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I mean, I actually think that probably Sea Monster is my least favorite from the Showa series, the Showa era. So it kind of takes like all the best parts of that movie, at least in my opinion, and kind of boils it down. It's like it's like the one you'd want to show to a kid. So yeah. It's totally mood. Yeah, there are days where I'm just like, I just want to shut my brain off and watch Godzilla's Revenge.
Yeah, I agree. It's one I've been meaning to revisit. Cool. So I guess so that's three of the topics down. I guess we're moving on to the Millennium.
Damn, here we go. This will be interesting.
It will be.
I love to use the phrase "the jury's still out," but these movies have been out for damn near 15 years now. So
it's been 20 years for Godzilla 2000 now.
I've finally come to the realization that I just really don't like the Millennium era. There are movies in them that I like. I will watch them, but just not a fan of this era very much.
Oh yeah, up front, like you said, that pound for pound thing. This is by far my least favorite era as far as.
Sadly, I have to agree. It's the one. It's the one that there was a couple I would rescue from the fire if it was burning away.
Yep.
But
there's maybe three. There's maybe three that I would run back into the house for.
Yeah, three. Yeah, and I know exactly which three too. Actually, now to think about it, but it's because I think what's really sad I feel about the Millennium era, and this is kind of one of those because this will be interesting. I'm curious, like people who are going to be out there, watching this, to sort of connect with the audience a little bit, is that like for us, we grew up during the Heisei period, like we actually were growing up as these movies are coming out. And then the Millennium films happen essentially when most of us were like kind of around like our mid to late teens, kind
of young adult time.
Yeah, exactly. And contextually, Godzilla 2000 in Japan came out the same year as The Matrix, Fight Club, and oh god, what's another big one from 1999? Iron Giant.
American Godzilla.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, the American Godzilla had come out the previous year. That was 98.
Oh, 98. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I'm very pedantic about years. I've been pissing people off with that lately. So, and that's even the thing is, I mean, like when it comes to like late 90s blockbusters, I mean, the Emmerich's Godzilla is actually one of the worst or one of the weakest ones in my opinion.
Sure. Absolutely.
And going into the Millennium series, what's really kind of unfortunate is that you can see that's where the times were changing in genre filmmaking. And they, not just Toho, I just think a lot of different cultures globally were having a lot of difficulty making that transition. Mm-hmm. Because I remember following, like I watched a lot of world cinema action films and genre films in that period. It's not my choice. I'll be mentioning my choice in a minute, but like for instance, Final Wars. I just started rewatching that last night, and like Kitamura's style, like with verses and a zoom, and there were folks like Johnny Toe to like have to pick up the slack, and so basically, like moving into the Millennium period, what's really sad is that there's some really awesome ideas that don't always kind of get the execution that they deserve. Because like, when you deal with like the way they did Mechagodzilla by building him off the skeleton and like how that, like that theme gets played out, like it's a cool idea, but man, that's a slow, cheesy, sappy movie. The first one of those two. Anyway, Godzilla 2000, I have to give quick kudos, and this will be one of my only like I'm going to talk about tangential stuff about not related to the film at hand, but the thing I liked about that movie is that Orga is essentially a symbolic stand-in for the American Godzilla. It is an alien invader that tries to duplicate Godzilla, and the real Godzilla is like, nope, and blows it up. Right. And it's such an like I even caught that the first time I saw that when it came out on my birthday in 2000, the year 2000. That was 19 years ago, and it'll be 19 years ago this Sunday.
Yep.
Wow. But it's
happy early birthday.
Mine was last week.
Oh, hey.
Oh, happy late birthday.
Well,
yeah, belated. Dear God, a lot of Leos in the house.
That's right.
No one of the King Caesar.
Talkie.
The King Caesar fans are out there.
That's right.
So anyway, but yeah, it's like that's a cool idea, but Godzilla 2000 is really like you could tell like they really rushed that through. They really just tried to just churn out product, and I think that's been the sad thing about watching the Godzilla films through the decades is that there is this diminishing return because in many ways there's still this old-fashioned belief of how you just cranked out this product, but we don't live in a world where we have the kind of the way that, especially like in Japanese filmmaking today, it's not the way it was in the 50s and 60s where essentially, I mean, it was like an assembly line. Like, I mean, when you look at, folks like Suzuki and even like Kurosawa, like they were cranking stuff out.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like Kinji Fukasaku, I mean, my God, in the 70s, that dude was prolific. And part of the reason that Suzuki was able to do the stuff that he did, and some of these filmmakers did what they did, and like Honda even, like when he would evolve, was probably because he was literally working every single day of the year on a film, in some way or another. And that isn't how it works today. So you have these large gaps. So you're not getting as much experience, not getting as much training, and you have too many voices trying to define what the movie's going to be, and it becomes more about these big sales and yada yada. Anyway, as the usual, just rant about cinema. And so
what's your pick?
So the pick is the kind of the one that decides I'm going to tell a story and do it well, and it's going to be totally obvious. It's GMK, Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Monsters All Out Attack.
Right.
You have the elements of the legends. You've got Ko Otani's amazing score, which makes perfect sense that he then went on to do the Shadow of the Colossus music, which is like some of the best compositions in my opinion, scores in the last 15 years. And again, like there's a story, you have a great leading character and she guides you through that tale, and she has these journeys and arcs and relationship with her father. And like, there's definitely this emotional spirit, which Kaneko kind of like took the way he directed the Gamera films and brought that similar energy, of telling a story and weaving all this magic and connection with the audience. And then again, just fantastic monster designs. I love how terrifying Godzilla looks in that movie. He is
the blank white eyes are just I mean, he's soulless, which is great. It takes him back to actually being a villain again.
Exactly. I mean, it's he becomes like an Oni basically,
right.
like he's this demon from the depths that, and like even the theme of like he is like the angry spirit of the people killed in World War II, enacted on the world. I mean, there's all of that, those elements, and yeah, it's a wild, and wild maybe not is kind of overstating it. It's a incredibly energetic and emotional picture. It doesn't have like the complete, insanity of Final Wars, which is, it's like I forgot how much the first 30 minutes has got so much going on.
Yeah.
But it's the film that it's easily out of the whole Millennium period. It's got the best pacing. It's got some of the best acting. It's got a great, very subtle dig in many ways at the 98 Godzilla rather than the overt Zilla.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The Americans thought it was Godzilla, but it wasn't really Godzilla.
It was like literally a throwaway line like between two soldiers, wasn't it? Like
right.
It's two officers, in the classroom. Yeah. And then Gino, Godzilla in name only. Yeah, but it's anyway. So just to finish my rant though, it's a blast. Baragon is adorable, and Mothra is beautiful. Ghidorah is a badass, and the submarine was really cool. And that's the thing, when you do those vehicular scenes where like the vehicle is in trouble and they have to go rescue someone who's in the vehicle, those scenes get really sluggish in some of these Godzilla films. Godzilla movies in particular, I felt have had that be an issue. Never felt it dragged at all in GMK. It worked as a good breather for me. Yeah. So anyway.
No, it's my pick as well. I think it's the one that really stands out. There are a couple other films in the Millennium era that are good. I enjoy watching them, but GMK is the one in that series that is like a great. I mean, it could easily be top 10 for me if I really sat down and thought about it. I love the sort of kind of Shinto demon-esque aspect to it. I think that's all terrific. I think that's like the perfect place to take the Millennium series. I mean, if you were going to do, because it seems like so many of those films wanted to reboot the series. Each one wanted to reboot, go back to the roots, and let's try and do something different. And GMK is the only one that like really goes for it. I mean, it goes for it in sort of like a Shin Godzilla way, where let's kind of get rid of some of the origins that people are used to with King Ghidorah and Mothra, and let's just do something completely different. Let's make Godzilla the bad guy, and it's a great movie. Godzilla looks great. The set design is great. The miniatures look awesome. That's another one that's got a lot of pyrotechnics in it. Especially there are some great wide shots looking. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think they're in Tokyo, and it's in Tokyo Bay looking inward, and the city is ablaze, and Godzilla and King Ghidorah are just fighting on the shoreline. And I mean, it looks amazing. It's a really amazing looking film.
Yeah. And to quickly mention one other moment, you were talking about the visuals. One of the things I also loved about GMK is it's this wonderful moment that it plays funny depending on your mood. It could be either really funny or really dark. And it's the moment when the breath first gets used and you do that cut to that classroom and the teacher's getting the kids ready to evacuate. You just see that flash.
The atomic bomb smoke, right? Yes. It's got the mushroom cloud coming up in the background. Yeah.
And like the first time I watched it, like my parents and we just were like, oh my God, and started laughing. And then, later times I've watched it, it's like, oh dear God, especially after you've watched Grave of the Fireflies, you're thinking about that a lot very differently.
Yeah. And, it's an amazing movie. And yeah, Baragon. I remember really quickly, being in Suncoast Video, gosh, I must have been like 12, and there was a copy of Fangoria, and I would always pick up a copy of Fangoria. Beg my dad. It's like, I know you're going to buy me this movie, but will you also buy me this copy of Fangoria? And there was a whole article and all these pictures for GMK, and I remember being confused because the name of the article, like the title for the article, was Calling All Monsters. And I thought that that's maybe what the movie was going to be called. And I saw that it had Baragon in it. And I thought that it was like a remake or a sequel to Destroy All Monsters. And that really, that kind of started me down the path of being a little bit more interested in some of the forgotten kaiju that really didn't get very many other movies. I was really excited that Baragon was going to be there, and that movie, or just that article about that movie, is what really made me interested in going back and watching the original Rodan and Varan and Space Amoeba and really kind of seeing like the origins of a lot of these kaiju that people have forgotten about and just aren't that popular.
Yeah, very nice. I think I actually own. I think my dad bought that issue of Fangoria. Not for me. He's a Fango fan as well. I mean, you've met my dad.
Yeah.
You know he's one of us.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's gonna be there, right, at the Hollywood, I'm assuming.
Yeah. I got tickets for both of us. But yeah. On the Baragon note, I just wanted to mention the one last thing, which is another big plus for GMK, is Rie Ota as Baragon. Seeing the behind the scenes footage of her making the monster sounds on camera to get into character,
right,
is too adorable. And that's another reason to love this movie.
Yeah, the Millennium, like you said, it's not the easiest one for me to pick from. And here's what I'll go through, sort of the setup of admitting a bit of where I dipped out of kaiju fandom. Right, it was like I saw those movies and I had those memories of watching those old classic Showa era, Toho films, and then I obviously was really into that kind of 80s 90s stuff going on as well. And then it just sort of disappeared for me for a while. And I definitely remember, I know I saw the 98 American Godzilla film in the theater. I know I was disappointed with it. And the only thing that I can really remember of that era is, and I've, now that I'm like saying it, I'm like, gosh, I hope that I'm not remembering this incorrectly, because memories have a way of doing that. But I'm fairly certain that after, so you said, when did we say Godzilla 2000 was released in America? Was it in the year 2000 or 99?
It was in the year 2000, August 18th, 2000. Yep. Okay,
so it was right after my birthday. It was probably, I must have been seeing something in the movie theater, and they showed a trailer for that. And if I remember correctly, now tell me if you guys know differently, they were playing a Rob Zombie song in the trailer. I want to say it was Dragula. I want to say it was Dragula or something.
Part of me wants to say that is true.
And I was really into Rob Zombie at that time, that record. And so like the combination of that and them doing like a classic, in a suit Godzilla film from Japan, I remember seeing that trailer and going like, oh, hell yeah, the Japanese are bringing it back, and be like, no, this is how you make a Godzilla movie. But with this like kind of really flashy new approach. I never saw it in the theater, and I just remembered seeing that trailer and being like, oh, cool. Then flash forward to like when I moved up here to Oregon 10 plus years ago now, and I remember having Netflix disc subscription at the time and like really starting to get into this Godzilla thing. And I think at that point I had never even seen Destroya, and so I remember jumping in there and like seeing like, wait, they kept making movies past when I cared about them. Like I guess I kind of didn't remember that, and so like I remember seeing Destroya and being like, wow, this is like Power Rangers era of like miniatures effects and stuff. So I was like, this is kind of cool. And then that got me kind of watching all these other ones that came, subsequently. So then I keep going into it, and I'm kind of like, revisiting all of it, going all the way through, seeing all the Millennium films, and I'll say for me, the least favorite is actually Final Wars. I really have a tough time stomaching Final Wars.
I'm right there with you. Yeah.
It's like cool in that one regard of like, cool, here's every monster. Like, oh, cool, yeah, there they all are. Oh, now he's got chainsaw hands now for some reason. Sure, why not? Like, Cerberus version of King Ghidorah. Okay, sure, why not? I liked a lot of that stuff. But even though obviously this is still even kind of like a throwback to, all right, we're back to aliens messing stuff up and this kind of stuff, like it just, even though again it seems to break character with what I've established of like I kind of tend to like the sillier out there stuff, but the motorcycle fighting and the where they're fighting with motorcycles as weapons, you know what I'm talking about? And and the mutants and stuff like that, it just was like, I don't know, man, none of it stuck with me.
Some reason,
but is that not the same one with the Russian submarine guy or the guy with the mustache?
Yes. Yeah, it's Don Fry.
That worked for me because that really worked for me. This like
that's a
anime-ish element of like where the command team force go, like kind of thing, so that worked for me. But that one for sure was like, I mean, I'm telling you, I watched this mere years ago, like, that was when I first saw it, like a couple years ago, and it was just kind of like, but if I had to pick one from the Millennium series, I think I would still land on Godzilla 2000. And primarily, he just looks fucking awesome. He's so mean looking in Godzilla 2000. The way his spikes look, his teeth, the shape of his head, his eyes, it all just looks so grisly and mean, and I love it. And then there is still a little bit, I mean, yeah, it wasn't like Orga was like my favorite monster I'd ever seen. It was like kind of like, oh, okay, sure, yeah, he's a UFO that's alive that then turned, or whatever. Right. But there was just so many other weird random elements. A lot of the battle elements of that one stuck out to me really well. Is that if I'm not mistaken, it's not the one that has like the bazooka team, right? Where the teams are like in the buildings trying to shoot bazookas at them and stuff.
I think that's and Megaguirus.
That's in Megaguirus.
Oh, you're right. Actually,
it is. So it's the one that comes after it. Right.
Yeah, okay.
But, like,
that's right.
Yeah, because again, I watch these pretty close together, so I'm like kind of it's easy to blend them together. But that Godzilla 2000 one, and that's the one that ends with like in the dub at least that guy just yelling Godzilla for like 20 seconds on
seconds.
Like that's awesome. Like just
somebody
like
needs to do a.
It is. It's like almost now that's the joke of like people making fun of Godzilla movies, and it's like that. No, that actually happens. Someone just goes Godzilla.
Yep.
Like,
it's funny speaking of that, because I do remember people doing that a lot, right? Yelling Godzilla.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
When I was a kid, my cousin, my also quarter Japanese cousin, I remember his favorite was Son of Godzilla, and whenever he would make fun of Godzilla, then or he'd make fun of me, he always used a line from Son of Godzilla, which is another really funny one. Used to his films, and he goes, "Godzilla, it's Godzilla! Look!" That's another great mocking of the American dub is great.
Totally.
Look, Godzilla.
Oh man, yeah, those dubs are something else. Yeah, but I mean, I definitely don't disagree with 2000 being a decent choice. What's kind of cool is there's some ideas that that Godzilla 2000 did that the films have, like, it had to walk so other films could run. Like the way that when he first comes on land and gets attacked by the military. I mean, Anno and Higuchi basically reused that for Shin Godzilla with the first major encounter. Oh yeah. And I mean, it's even like it's and it's a case of like, the Shin Godzilla version is far better visually executed, but but I highly doubt that the idea would have, it's at the very least, it's far less likely that the idea wouldn't have been in their minds to have done that sequence without 2000. Right. I mean, been ambitious enough to do that with such a rush and such a small budget. Yeah,
it's the stepping off point for the new series, right? I mean, it's just like the 1954, the 1984 Godzilla 2000. They're all like kind of like, this is where we're starting, now where you take
Exactly. Yeah, and yeah, the design is really cool. And
it is. It's just one of the meanest looking Godzillas.
Yeah, it is edgelordy as hell, and that's what makes it so good. It's a great, like, it's the end of the night. It's like the last gasp of 90s character design.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
He's the Rob Liefeld Godzilla, just like overly designed, like he needs a million fanny packs.
Right.
Yeah. Right. It's just I'm curious. Well, the feet were better.
Ouch! Take that.
But no, that's good. Yeah, it's good. It's good, and I totally understand about Final Wars, because I enjoy that film, but that thing is it's like a potpourri gone horribly wrong.
Yeah, it falls a little flat for me.
Doesn't that one also have? That's the one where Ghidra is under ice, right? And there's that guy knows about it.
That's GMK.
Oh no, you're right. That's GMK.
You're right.
There was something with the ice though, right? Because there's the battles in Antarctica. There was a Death Ghidorah or whatever at the end of Final Wars.
Right. Yeah. But I was thinking the GMK one where he's it's like you said, the legends of all the monsters in that one. Right. But to me, that was like when I saw the new trailer for King of Monsters, I was like, didn't they already do that? Like, I was like, oh,
that's what I thought.
Yeah, but there's a cool reason. Not a cool reason. There's a cool reference they're able to make in the process.
Cool.
Of that.
Awesome. I figured it might have been an homage, but I was just like surprised that's where they reference. It's like you went to that film. Interesting.
Yeah.
But clearly that movie was made by a fan, so it makes sense.
Oh yeah, since we're kind of moving into talking about the later films. I mean, talking about the legacy of it all. I can mention the thing that came to mind earlier is that so in Godzilla King of the Monsters, this newest one, the different places they're different outposts that are related to certain monsters. So like, the place where Mothra is outpost, it's outpost 61. The place where Rodan is found is outpost 56. The place where Godzilla is number 54.
Right.
And the Ghidorah one is outpost 32, which means it's adjacent to U.S. outpost 31 from John Carpenter's The Thing.
Okay.
Oh.
All right.
Wow.
All right. Interesting.
So there's some kind of there's a lot of there's some nods in there. I know that some people have expressed that like, oh well, I don't know why those nods were there, but I
appreciate the nods. I definitely appreciate
who doesn't like
the
something
nods,
to scratch around and find when you look harder.
Right, yeah.
Oh yeah, they're all over the place. I mean, even like
Whatever.
Doherty even said like, oh yeah, like there's this one shot you can see a sort of Anguirus style skeleton
I've seen
somewhere.
that. I've seen that shot. Yep.
Yeah. But,
so clearly there was one of those types of monsters that existed at one point, but
exactly right.
It doesn't have to be our Anguirus, so to speak, but
which is good because we want our Anguirus to still be alive.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else about the Millennium series. I don't know. I was also, if we're gonna jump into anything regarding the newer stuff post that, I was in Japan on my honeymoon when Shin Godzilla was in the theaters, and in Japan, and I can tell you, remember, this is my honeymoon. I'm supposed to be there enjoying time with my new bride, and we're at the, I can never say the name of it, the fish market in Tokyo. This is only like the first day we got there, and we're at this fish market and we're having sashimi in this little beautiful little stalls, wooden stalls of this old part of the fish market, and there's a TV above my wife's head, and they're just showing like interviews with the creator and this footage of Shin Godzilla, and I'm supposed to be paying attention and having a conversation, but I'm like as my eyes are glued to the screen, thinking like, oh god, do I watch it here and not understand anything that's happening? Like, I did wait to watch it at Hollywood Theater when it was here, but it was so that one kind of has a weird special place in my heart too. It's just like, and watching that one when I finally did watch it, it was just such a shock and a surprise for me. It was so fresh, and I guess kind of the facelift. If you're gonna do a Japanese Godzilla movie, we've treaded a lot of water already with a lot of that. So like, if you're gonna do it, might as well get somebody, the last person you would expect to like pull that out and just be like, okay, all right, interesting, right, and just it's humor. I was not expecting that. I just was not expecting them to be so self-referential and self-deprecating to a degree of like, our bureaucracy is standing in the way of any progress. It's like, whoa, that's pretty on the nose there, buddy.
You could definitely sense the frustration that the younger generation in Japan has with the way that things are done and their response to the earthquake and the flood. And I think the best moment in that in regards to the humor is when there's like the new guy. I think he was like originally the head of like agriculture or something, and now he's the new prime minister.
He's like prime minister, yeah.
And looking him so much that he can't eat, and he's like, "Oh, my noodles are cold," and he says something like, "They're right. This job is more difficult than I thought," or something like that.
Right. Oh man.
Even in this moment of chaos, he's still being super self-centered and worried about himself and his food.
Yep.
And I especially love the detail of like the subtitles where there's the character keeps getting new job titles and he gets
all of it. Like every time they make a new committee, the title of the committee gets longer. Well, we have to move to a different floor. Like, back it all up. Like, it's just, come on, this is amazing.
And just the shot of like, okay, and this guy now has this many jobs, and suddenly, whoop, you get to see this long, like, it takes up the entire screen, all the different things he has to do, the different responsibilities.
It's a funny shtick, and like, you don't expect there to be a shtick in a Godzilla film, which is so great.
A shtick related to bureaucracy as a form of like almost like Armando Iannucci, satire. Yeah. It's like you expect it in the guy who did In the Loop, or you expect it out of like oh god, what was another filmmaker? Just totally lost track of mind. Someone who's satirical, whatever. Levinson, somebody like that,
Right.
But it's a blast of a film, and I mean, it's kind of cool. I mean, like we've made it here. We're now at like we've been gabbing on for quite a while now, and it's cool to see that like there is still there's still more. I think it's just amazing. Like when I was a kid and I realized that Destroyer was like the last one and he dies at the end and it's supposed to kind of pass on, but at least the last one they're going to do. And yeah.
Right.
I mean, I was bummed out by that as a kid. Like,
yeah.
I don't remember crying about it, but I probably did because I was like, I think it was like 7 or 8, let's see, it was 95. It would have been 8 or 9. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, I I actually cried when Ishiro Honda died because I was aware enough of filmmaking to be aware of that loss. And, it was, and it was, and it was like Cinefantastique or something. You did like a retrospective on him. And it's like, what's kind of cool though, is like, we are now in this period. Like it was weird when I realized we were talking about getting this thing together and realizing that since 2014, there have been essentially, what is it? So Shin Godzilla, 2 Americans, that's 3, and then 3 anime films. So
Anime
6.
films, yeah.
There have been 6 films, 6 kaiju Godzilla movies. And not only that, but the legacy of Godzilla has continued through Pacific Rim and through Kong Skull Island.
Kong Skull Island is fantastic.
Which is
I thought that was great. I loved it.
I loved it so much. Yeah.
Yeah, and not just that, but think about other things that are like kind of just because there is now such a niche culture, not even niche, almost mainstream culture of like people who love these giant. Look at like something like Colossal coming out. Like who would have predicted that would have ever been a thing? But it's like, okay, you all know the format well enough. Now let's explore it in a way you've never would have thought in the normal version of this. It's like this weird, not even dark or I don't even know how to describe that film. It's not. It's just an odd choice, but it was like, it was fun and interesting, but it was just like, without pre-existing kaiju cinema, I don't know if that film would have worked. So it kind of piggybacks on all this new interest in it.
I hate to say it, I still haven't seen Colossal.
It's just very, if you haven't seen it, I saw that at the Hollywood Theater too. And it's interesting in such an odd way where it's like it's using the idea of giant monsters destroying cities in a completely different light but then it also has some really dark tones in it. You come into it thinking it's going to be almost just a silly comedy, and it gets pretty dark.
Yeah, that's my understanding. I'm not terribly surprised. It's Nacho Vigalondo, right? Who wrote and directed that?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's because my understanding is the guy who did Time Crimes, and Time Crimes is another one of those like, oh, this is kind of a neat little like kind of dark, interesting, kind of Hitchcock with a sci-fi twist, and then it has to go some places, and it resolves really well. But it's like it's a difficult science fiction time travel murder mystery, and I've really have liked his work. He also did a really good segment for, I think it was one of the VHS films. I want to say it was VHS Viral, it was the one with the doorway between where this guy creates his machine into a different reality, and then his other self has created the doorway on the other side. And they're like, hey, let's swap sides and let's go explore, in the middle of the night.
Right.
So Vigalondo doing something in that vein, something that, it's a little edgier and also, but, still has that jumping off. But exactly. I mean, I sometimes get into my friend Paul about what is and isn't a kaiju, and like and one of the things actually though that it's really hard to deny that it is a kaiju was like even like the way in the Clash of the Titans remake, the way they redid the Kraken. I mean,
right, yeah,
that's it doesn't necessarily destroy the whole city, but it's lays some mayhem. It does it does some rampaging, and Rampage itself.
Rampage.
Rampage.
Yeah. Rampage probably wouldn't have worked as obviously the video game was a knockoff of all the kaijus we love.
Yeah. It was Godzilla and King Kong,
Godzilla, and giant werewolf for some reason, but that was actually I did just play the new Rampage video game at Dave & Buster's recently, and it was actually kind of fun. Like I was like, oh, I didn't know they actually did a video game based on the remade movie, or the actual movie, but it was actually kind of cool.
Yeah, I think even the new Jurassic World movies had a little bit of this element.
Oh, for sure. The giant just having to make up new dinosaurs.
Right, not
giant
kaiju,
underwater dinosaur, giant,
but
super T-Rex.
The genetically modified, super monster. It had sort of a kaiju feel to it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Right. Yeah, so that's the cool thing. This is it's something that like it's a cool way of also saying as we're seeing like it get to evolve and change in different ways. Is that it's like this is the stuff we grew up with as kids. These were our toys. These were our ways of like telling stories, and at least it was for me. I mean, like, when saying like, it was there was one of the films where we were talking about how it was like you met for King Ghidorah about mixing all the different like toys together. This my Xenomorph and my Terminator and all that together. That was literally when I was, oh God, how old was I? I was about 7 years old. And we may still have the VHS tape of this around somewhere, which is terrifying. That was the first quote unquote movie that I made as a kid, where my dad filmed my friend Kevin and I like playing with our toys, and it had T-Rex toys and Godzilla toys and all that stuff in the same space. And it's like that. It's where it's. I guess what it is like, I don't know. This is some weirdly like, I don't know. It's like we've been talking for hours, so like maybe I'm getting emotional about this, but it's like it's part of the history. But what's so cool is to see that even though my suspicion is Kong versus Godzilla, it's going to be Legendary's last one. I mean, I don't think these films are making enough money in this current cinema economy to keep going. But the spirit of them is going to continue living on, and it's a great way of saying like we can still do more with it. And that's one of the things that is kind of an interesting criticism that's I feel is very valid about the Godzilla franchise and a lot of kaiju movies in general. Is there's very much a formula and a repetition, and they're just kind of very much the same in a certain regard. Because they, again, as we've said, because especially with the Millennium series, they just kind of had like, well, we're just going to kind of crank these out and not tell stories. And so what's kind of cool though is that we as filmmakers ourselves, and like Calvin, you and I have like said to each other, like, why haven't we like decided to like just get together and try to make a freaking kaiju movie, whatever we could, but that's the thing, we can.
Can we start with a kaiju theme or music video for my kaiju themed hip hop project that I'm still working on?
Oh, that would be amazing.
It transcends even that. Like I look back at so one of my favorite hip hop MCs of all times is MF Doom, who his normal shtick is that of a supervillain from the Marvel universe trying to be like Dr. Doom kind of inspired thing, and he's been playing on that forever, but like I looked back and I wasn't as aware of. In fact, Zach Carter, your previous guest, was the one that kind of turned me on to this, but he was in like sort of a super group in the early 2000s called Monster Island Czars. And the Monster Island Czars, I know I mentioned this to you guys, I think, when we were prepping for this, but Monster Island Czars was a bunch of different hip hop MCs who already had their own established names, and like it was MF Grimm and all these other dudes, but then they all took on kaiju personas. So MF Doom is King Ghidorah, and one of them's King Kong, and one of them's Space Godzilla, and one of them's all these different. One of them's King Caesar, and so they've got all these different names. And then I have the record. I mean, it's not easy to get, but I have it. And if you look at it, they're literally even using images of the like little drawings of the kaiju on the back, listing as their names and stuff, and images next to them. And so they're sampling the hell, which is, I mean, we were talking about that before, how many great sound bites and quotes there are from especially the Showa and Heisei era of stuff. Right. And so they were doing a lot of that stuff. And so they did this whole like one record as Monster Island Czars, and then Doom did his own solo album as King Ghidorah called Take Me to Your Leader, which is freaking fantastic, probably one of my all-time favorite hip hop albums. I have that one on vinyl as well, and they're both just really, really solid, well done things. And it totally like made this connection in my mind. At this point, I've already been doing all this like kind of themed hip hop around Marvel Comics and X-Men and stuff, and so I'm like, well, why would I not return to my first love, which was Godzilla, and kind of pick up the torch where these guys left off so many years ago, and there's been so many new movies since then, right? There was none of the Millennium stuff represented or post that, and so I'm like, dude, I need to like get back into this and stuff. And so I've been slowly and steadily working on that. I had a Kickstarter for it. It did not go well. I don't know how many other people really have a cross section of love of kaiju films and hip hop,
right?
So I'm kind of gone back to working on another project. So it's still in the works. I'm still working on. I still have a whole album's worth of stuff. Most of the music's written. I've got all these samples and stuff pulled from newer films and stuff to kind of keep that thing alive. In fact, one of them wasn't an edit. The project I was using the name Jira, the little one, because if I remember correctly, there are some times where they reference Godzilla Jr. as being Jira in the American dubs during that psychic girl you're talking about. I had to really like go back and catch it in one movie to confirm I was right, but I'm like, oh, yep, she does call him that there for some reason. Yeah. Like it's kind of a play on a little version of Gojira, right? Gojira, if you like shorten it, Jira. Right. And so I was taking the 98 Matthew Broderick film, and the whole like, it's Gojira, you moron line or whatever. Like nice. I used that and cut off the go, and so one of my samples in there is like, it's Jira, you moron. Like I was like, there we go, works. So look forward to that maybe.
That's
and
awesome.
You guys can make us music video, because I've always had this idea of the music video of me being a giant monster stumbling around, drinking giant water towers like beer and smoking a smokestack like a cigar and stuff, and so.
Oh, dude, we definitely got to do that.
Accidentally crunching
That
things.
sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I think Calvin's your man.
There we go.
Yeah.
This is good.
Oh,
this
yeah,
is good.
yeah.
This is good, guys. All right, everybody. This is great. A little bit of possible nerdy
Never
Portland
project.
history being
Yeah.
made here.
Oh,
heard it here
yes.
first, but-
More to come from this.
Right.
Now, what I will say about the newer films, I mean, it's no secret, I think, to anybody that I'm not the biggest fan of the new legendary Godzilla films. But the thing that I like the most is that we're seeing more and more the younger generation becoming interested, and for once in my life, it feels like there's a big fan base of this. You know, when I was a kid watching Godzilla films, I there were times where I wondered if I was the only one who knew these movies existed or knew that they, or enjoyed them as much as I did. I mean, there was no real community for it. So it's really nice to see people getting excited for kaiju films, even if they're not my favorite kaiju films. In fact, my little cousin, I took him to see Godzilla King of the Monsters, and that's the first Godzilla film that he's seen, and he's going to be coming with me to the Hollywood to see the
that's
two that
cool.
we're going to see.
Oh man,
So,
That's awesome.
so yeah, and it's great to see. He's seen Kong Skull Island and all those, and he's he really likes those, and it's fun to like join these Godzilla groups and see how big the fandom is. So I don't know. It will be interesting to see if Legendary Pictures can keep it going, if they are making enough money doing it. I would like to see more made after Godzilla versus King Kong, just because as long as they make them, I'll go see them.
yeah.
I'm such a fan of these movies.
Yeah, I
That's
think we can all agree. Like 2014 Godzilla had like maybe 15 minutes of a good movie in there. Like there was moments. It was like I could have used more Bryan Cranston. I probably could have used better Ken Watanabe, because Watanabe's a great actor and he was severely underserved in that.
I feel he was. I agree with that.
And then
Same
and
thing
then
with the Monsters.
and then as
I don't
soon as
know
he-
if Chris
right,
would disagree
like there was a
with
lot of
me,
that was, and also the plot on that one is just like really like I mean still to this day I feel like, am I the only one who's like noticing like why is it, if the whole idea is that the female is trying to find the male so that they can mate or whatever, like there's the scene where the hero's on the bridge and he's laying down and the female is walking over him, and you can see like what appears to be fertilized eggs already on her. So it's like, so wait, what is the point then? What are we doing here? Like, so I don't know. I don't think anybody was thinking about a plot when they made that movie.
Well, that's it. I think that's one of the problems with Edwards's kind of his. I guess it's the way that his style that from his first film with Monsters kind of translates not quite as well into the 2014 Godzilla. Is that so much of the monster stuff in Monsters is off camera. And it's not even just simply. It's like you get these little glimpses, and I think that's part of what. I do love that about Edwards' Godzilla film, but at the same time, I agree it's very frustrating, because I love that film personally. I'm a big Gareth Edwards defender. I mean, I would love Rogue One, as well. And,
Yeah, I like that film. Just fine.
And I feel like it's a, but I defend the movie, but the problem is that it's like I don't necessarily have the great arguments as to why those things work. They just happen to work for me.
Sure. I mean, again, when Godzilla's barfing atomic breath into a monster's mouth and killing it, you're like, hell yeah, this is awesome. I feel like a kid again. But which I hear, and again, I have not seen it in one, but I hear the critique everybody had with that was like more of that, less of the talkie. And now you hear kind of people who are on either side of the newest one, where it's like, yes, they delivered. There was way more of the fighty, so much little of the talkie. And then there's another whole group of people going, I could have used some more human drama, because I feel like they really brushed over all of that stuff. Like
your mileage may vary when I feel that it comes to what Doherty did, is that he found that he tried to find a balance, and a lot of what makes the film strongest for me and what I really appreciate about it is that it's very theme driven, and the elements of the human characters help push some of those themes forward, and the monster stuff is entirely where it really kind of gets to come to life, and the way that the people interact with them. And that's and admittedly, that's been sort of Doherty's sort of thing, is that he is a very theme-driven writer and director. I mean, even Trick or Treat has that element as well, because it's like he just says, because there were these short stories with a concept, runs with it, and that's kind of, in some respects, how it goes. I think my issue with King of the Monsters is more in how like there's a lot of characters that like I know these characters aren't going to be in the next one. You don't need them. They're not doing enough here to warrant their being around.
Right.
So that's kind of more of that's the only complaint that I feel that people have a point about.
Friday Night Lights guy. What is he doing in there? What are you doing in there, Friday Night Lights guy?
Well, he was all right. I can't believe I heard him referred to as a Gary Stu in a review recently, and it was like, are you kidding me? Like, that does not fit the definition. Like, he's the smart guy in the room, but that's pretty clear. Like, that's an old school 50s movie trope. Like, that's been around for a while.
411's just getting typecast now. Yes, you can talk to monsters. We get it. Like,
yeah. No, I don't know. I don't know what it was about King of the Monsters that maybe I'm just grumpy in my old age. I think I'm
old. Your ripe old age of what, 30?
27.
27.
Oh, jeez, you are oh my God. Oh, no.
So jaded and bitter about the world that's passed you by.
No, yeah, but yeah, they definitely delivered. They delivered on action. The action was cool.
Actually, sometimes that's what I want. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Like I'm a guy who defends Tron Legacy. It's not a good movie, but I can eat the shit out of popcorn to it. You know what I mean? It's just like a lot of pretty lights, Legacy. Great soundtrack. Like that's all I really need for that movie. I didn't get into it expecting it to be the new Citizen Kane. I was like, you're redoing a series that the original's so dated at this point. You try showing it to anybody, even if you're explaining its cultural relevance, people are like, this is boring. Please turn this off.
Yeah, I fell asleep during the first time I watched Tron.
Yeah, it's not an easy watch if you didn't live through it. It's It's
I think with Godzilla King of the Monsters, it was still the human action that still kind of. I thought the monster action was just fine. Mm-hmm. The human stuff was just the humor was kind of off-putting, and I don't know. I'm a really big fan of Ken Watanabe. He's a goddamn legend, and
of course.
I kind of feel like they just kind of made him. I don't know.
He's still the way his part concludes in the film was really effective for me.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah,
sure.
But I agree that I think a lot of the issue I feel also there is that it suffers from the fact there's just too many people needing to get a word in edgewise, like O'Shea Jackson and the female military commander. Like Bradley Whitford as a comic relief, I cannot believe that did not work for me. I was very surprised. I was happy. Like I thought it was kind of cool that he was there because that means that now Sally Hawkins has worked with both of the guys that were running the show in Cabin in the Woods now. Because Jenkins and Bradley Whitford and King of the Monsters.
Oh, that's awesome. They were so good in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like definitely like, cause I was talking to some friends about this the other day, and like, there's definitely like, I think that ends up kind of detracting from, that's the too many characters element is kind of what detracts. But at the same time, it gives it that sense of scope that these monster films have had sometimes some difficulty with having that, like, because all these characters, part of the reason why they're a bit distracting is they all are very distinctive. They all have personalities. Like when you see O'Shea Jackson, it's not like, who's that guy? It's like you actually are like, oh, okay, that is a character, and you see him and you're aware of him. And when you see the military commander, it's like that's a distinctive character. So those are all parts of the thing. It's just it's the integration of them into the greater story. It makes it too complicated in the process. Because to me, honestly, the emotional beats that worked in this new Godzilla, I mean, like I literally cried during parts of that. Like it was hard to like keep my cool. Like it just emotionally like got to me, and that's and the fact that it doesn't to other people, like it's just kind of it's again, its mileage may vary, and it's but I think that's kind of ultimately what it comes down to. I mean, it's what we all were coming back to. Coming back to the whole point of this episode was, we're all here talking about what moves us and what affects us.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely.
I still look forward to seeing it. I've heard so many different things about it, and I'm still like, chomping at the bit. Like I'm just like, I think it's a little too late for the theater scene, and still too early for getting it on digital or anything else. So, I'm anxious to see it.
Just the one last thing I was just going to quickly comment is that what I believe Calvin will hopefully agree with on me on this one is the score is amazing.
Yeah, the score is great. Yeah. And I guess I was thinking about it a little bit more. Some of just the action movie tropes were, I don't know, just a little, there was kind of lifted right from Commando with Schwarzenegger, right? Your kid's missing.
Yeah, okay.
Out in the woods, and it's kind of like, I don't do that anymore, boss. We need you to do it one more time. a little
see
bit
what
of
you're
that
saying.
commando, and it's like the Godzilla stuff was great, and I liked the nods to the Japanese films. Once again, I just wasn't a fan of the human action, but maybe I'm a purist where it's like I need my stiff Japanese leads. I need no love story. I need military.
I need
military
tiny women twins from an island. Otherwise,
I need reporters, and I need military guys in suits.
Right.
I don't want any of this
eye
personality.
patches, pipes that turn into weapons, all sorts of
Right. I don't want any jokes. If it's jokes, it's got to be self-deprecating and sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Maybe that's just me.
That's it. We've hit upon it.
Yep, I think that was it. I didn't appreciate the outright humor, I guess.
Yeah, that's a sticking point I notice in a lot of blockbusters these days. They have to have a certain amount of comedy that has been really frustrating with the way that Marvel films do it these days is like, you guys are ruining some really good dramatic moments with this. You realize that, right?
Totally. But like you were saying, mileage may vary, and I'm shocked that we were so similar on our choices for this series, because G fans are really split.
It's true.
Oh yeah,
it's true. Probably one of the more divided fandoms I can think of, honestly.
I am shocked that someone else had Smog Monster.
Oh, for sure.
I'm not that surprised. I think in my circle, a lot of the people that I know who are G fans love Smog Monster.
Really? For me, it's often like a sort of the cousin you don't talk about kind of thing. Like it's
people yell at me on Facebook.
The person who introduced me to it sold it on it's like even amongst Godzilla movies, it's terrible. And I was
right,
like,
yeah, that's everyone.
Oh wow.
Everyone says it's one of the worst. It's one of the worst. Skip it. What? Really? It's one of the best.
What people are you associating with? Maybe
a lot of the
maybe should reconsider.
We might say.
Yeah, well, that's why I was shocked by this podcast. I really thought there was going to be a little bit more of a disagreement. I thought you guys were going to be very different, but I mean, we all kind of came in around the same.
I wish I had video here to show you, but my Smog Monster shirt I'm wearing is pretty awesome. So no joke, I really love it.
That's pretty rad.
So yeah, anybody have anything out there that they would like to plug?
Closing remarks, huh?
Yeah.
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Well, the thing I could say is that, the one thing that we kind of didn't mention about Quinn's connection to Calvin and to myself as well is that all three of us were also involved with the Spunk's Not Dead anthology horror. And Quinn, it's been interesting to hear you doing a different voice this time, because I had to watch The Devil Spunk so many times during the mastering of that. It is my mother's favorite segment, by the way.
I think it's mine too. I think it's my favorite segment.
Too bad you didn't see all the stuff that got cut out, because there were some goodies there.
Oh man, I mean, I read the script. The script was great, but anyway. But I guess, as for those of you out there that think listening to us is interesting enough, you also can see a film that all of us worked on, and we all kind of had our hand in it. Because as I know, I remember Zach telling me that Quinn, you and Jeff had to, and Johnny had to basically do other jobs behind the camera when other people are on camera.
Oh, for sure, that's just the way we work.
and so please definitely support us on that. And then also, I will say. Now that I think about how much I love kaiju movies and giant monster movies, I'm really bummed that I didn't come up with the spunk that ate Pittsburgh or something.
Yeah, I know, right?
And come up with some giant weird smog monster made of spunk.
Dude, not too late. There's a sequel right there.
Oh God,
there's a sequel.
People keep talking about that, and I'm just like, nope, I'm running away.
Yeah, no, I'll never do a sequel. The only way I'll do a sequel, it'll have to be like Joe Dante doing Gremlins 2. I'm gonna demand all these crazy things, and they're gonna either have to deliver all these crazy things, or I'm not gonna do it. It's like, nope, I want to be in New York. I want to be in a building. I want Christopher Lee.
I need a 12-pack of Zima in my trailer.
Yep, that's the only way I'm doing a sequel.
I also want to say this was just, I loved how, like, again, this all came together and the kind of connections that are all there. We had that connection from, the Spunk's Not Dead thing, but just on another note, because apparently we're such big kaiju fans, I'd gotten onto this podcast with you directly right now because, like, the guy I mentioned, Zach, right? Zach was like, hey, these guys are doing a podcast. It's about kaiju movies. I don't really know anything about that. Can you want to jump in on there? And I said, yeah, sure. And then it was only after then that I realized that a mutual friend of ours, Calvin, had tagged both of us in the post about the Hollywood's movie theater,
right?
Godzilla-Thon, being like, these are the two guys that I know really like Godzilla movies. I didn't know that was you that was texting that post till after I agreed to do the podcast. And then I went back and was like, oh my god, I'm going to be on a podcast with that guy. That's just the small world we live in, and I love it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Thank you so much for being here, man.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
Just episode 2. I'm fumbling my way through this. As I said in the first episode, I've been trying to get on other horror podcasts and really wanted to join one specific one who I really like. I really listened to the 22 Shots of Moods and Horror. And by the way, they listened to our first episode, Chris.
Oh, cool. Hey.
And they commented on it and stuff. But I'd been lobbying to get on there, and they kind of I think started getting annoyed that I was bothering them so much to get on. So I thought, I'll go make one just to kind of pass the time. So
and they probably commented something extensive. You sound great, but if that Chris guy could just shut the fuck up for like 10 minutes, that'd be great.
I think everybody really liked it. We got some of their followers to come over and listen to our stuff. And
wow. Well, welcome to the mediocrity. Hi.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because we're just, at least I am just feeling like I'm just kind of fumbling through this, and I'm really, really glad that I've found people who are interested in doing this and are totally game to just kind of bullshit about monster movies. Hey,
it's like it's punk rock.
So much for doing this.
Yeah,
exactly. It's funny. I say that all
rough
the time.
Around the edges.
When people ask what type of movies I make, I'm like, like punk rock movies.
Totally.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
It's not as polished. It's not as, you know what I mean. But I could think of some bands that I actually would rather listen to their early records when they weren't all produced and polished. Yeah, they didn't have good equipment. They were just, making it work. And it's like you can hear the blood, sweat, and tears in there.
Oh yeah.
Right. It really is just sometimes it's, especially like if you're doing a short film or something for $0, it's just, it really is that moment of, I guess Sid can play bass, right? I mean, someone teach him how to play bass and he can play bass. He can do it.
He looks the part. Good enough.
Right. So, yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, I think this is great. And, I know Chris knows this, but same thing for you, Quinn, come back anytime.
No, please, please.
Any hints of coming attractions for your listeners out there, Mr. McCarthy?
As far as the podcast, no. The podcast subjects are hard for me to come by. I could always use good suggestions. But tune in to my YouTube channel, 7th Street Productions. Watch References Film. I've been doing more Fulci videos, which seems to be the most popular thing on my goddamn channel. Nobody cares about it except for Fulci films, which is cool, but eventually I'm going to run out of them. I did just get an email from Wild Eye Releasing kind of talking about a little bit of news regarding my last feature film, Jesus, I Was Evil, that will be coming out on DVD hopefully soon. But really the gist of that was they're working on it and it's like in process. But they just actually had their most popular DVD release thus far. I don't know if it's necessarily like their most financially successful, but they just released a documentary on scary stories to be told in the dark.
Oh, yeah.
And it's come out in Walmart. And of course, it seems like a lot of those companies, their business model is to release something that sort of looks like something else that's popular in the theaters right now.
We know that very well.
So yeah, I think that they are sort of riding high on the success of their documentary that just got released. So I think that it's going to take a little bit longer for my film to get released, but stay tuned for that. Other than that, no big No, nothing else too big. I've got another audition to do tonight right after this. That's about it.